All right, 7 o'clock. First thing is call the meeting to order with a pledge of allegiance. No problem. We stand and remain standing for a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everybody. The approval of the agenda. Have one addition. Greg Burkhardt is out here to talk about our audit that he just got done doing here for the first half of the year. So as soon as we get down a couple more, we'll get you in, Greg, so you can move on. Anybody else with the additions, correction?
I want to add, approve getting the snowplow truck fixed.
What?
Getting the snowplow truck fixed.
You want that under new?
We're gonna take it, Kate, on.
Right, but we need to approve it.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Me and him did.
Add GT 1922.
another zoning permit, GT 1922.
Yeah, it looks railing and wall.
All right, that additions, somebody make a motion to approve.
I'll motion to approve.
Come on, second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I opposed, motion carried. Approval of the minutes, addition corrections to the minutes from the September 12th meeting. Somebody make a motion to approve the minutes from that meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Someone second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I opposed, motion carried. Approval of the bills, questions? I see we have 2350 here to the Council of Governments, right?
Second half.
But then it says concession stand after, oh no, second half. So we're paying $4,700 a year to them people then?
Yeah, the first half was prorated because we didn't have the full year. This would be the second half of the year.
So how many hours of service did we where's their bill? How much did we actually use them?
Bills are in front of you. I don't know what, if they put just the hours that we use them, they bill per our population.
So if they came out here and helped you, that's not a separate billing
No.
that shows.
So if we use them 20 hours or we use them 2 hours, it's the same.
We can discuss it later, but do you think that's a good investment? Anybody?
Well, she was able to come out with Jessica, right?
Yeah, she's came out a few times and we've done some stuff over online too, because she was out for a while with the baby.
A few times though, for 6 hours at a time, so we got 18 hours or 3 times at 2 hours, and we got 6 hours and we got $2,300 invested in it. I mean, are we getting enough for our money? You know, and we can discuss it later. I just seen that was in there and I was just wondering what we're getting for our dollar. Anybody else with questions on the bills? If not, somebody make a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Someone second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye. I opposed, motion carried. We got Greg Burkhardt here tonight. I think we can put him in right now to go over our the semi-annual, I guess it is, first half of the year audit.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you're having a good evening. Got a few things that I want to go over with the council tonight. Talk a little bit about where your financials are sitting during the first 6 months of 22. And then go over another report we provide over additional procedures related to the conduct of the city's operations. Essentially. So I trust, Anthony, you were able to provide copies for everyone here that wanted paper. Otherwise, we did provide that electronically as well. So the first thing I want to do is just touch on the financials. Give you guys a sense of where we're sitting during that first 6 months. So there should be a report, we call it compilation report. That's got your financial numbers in there. There's approximately 10 pages, I believe. So we want to start there. The first page of any significance, I believe is page number 2. That's our report. Just basically talks about procedures that we perform, what we did and what we didn't do. Okay. So we took the financial information from the city and created the financial statements that you're gonna talk about here momentarily. All right, and that report on page 2 describes. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is move over to page number 4. Page 4 represents the balance sheet of the governmental fund. Right, you guys see this every year when I talk about the annual audit. So as I look at this page, you know, what we're seeing here, the top section are your assets. So that's essentially your cash that you hold, any receivables that are due to come into the city that weren't in place at the end of the year in cash or at the end of the first 6 months in cash are in receivables. It also shows your investment accounts and some other miscellaneous items. When I look at this, there isn't anything too noteworthy on this page, other than I do want to point out that you are receiving approximately $120,000. It's already been received, but at June 30, you're due to receive about $120,000 from the state of Minnesota. Majority of that is your local government aid. Okay. You're also due to receive from the county approximately $225,000 for your first half of your tax settlement. You receive 2 of those a year. The first half comes in July and the second half comes in December. All right. So your cash balances overall are down from where they were at the end of last year, but that's to be expected because you haven't received those 2 large payments, well over $300,000. Okay. So it's a difficult examination to look at this balance sheet versus where it was in December, simply because of that result right there. Okay. The other pieces of this statement show any liabilities. So those are bills that are due at the end of the first 6 months. And then also your fund balance or your net worth for each one of those funds. All right. So if there isn't any questions on this page, we'll just continue on.
Can you just describe what unavailable revenue is?
Unavailable revenue is
Just so I know.
absolutely great question. So unavailable revenue are essentially it's receivables that you have that are long-term. Meaning you're not going to collect those soon enough to use them in the city's budget for either the year that we're in or very shortly after year end. So I'll give you a great, for instance, your delinquent property taxes. The great
Okay.
example. So you have, you know, and it happens with every city, and I'm not suggesting that it is a concern here with Good Thunder, but your delinquent property taxes aren't going to likely be collected within the first few months after either June 30 for the first 6 months or December 31 at the end of the year. And because of that, we have to show it as unavailable. It's just not there for you guys to use in your budget. So there's some other things in there as well. I believe there's some special assessments that are still going to be collected that are just not yet scheduled for payment.
Okay.
So it's a construct of the accounting standards, but great question.
But you got that figured out to that $67,000 then?
Yep, that's not all property tax, or it's not all delinquent tax. A portion of that, approximately 44,000, is special assessments. That I believe it was an old project years ago. A lot of times, as you guys are familiar, you special assess properties for the benefit of repairing the street or redoing the water and sewer lines. And they pay those assessments off over 10, 15, sometimes 20 years. So whatever isn't scheduled to be collected shortly after year end is what we call unavailable. It's not available to you guys to use in your budgets.
It's not gone. It's just not
No,
available.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And really that portion of it isn't even delinquent. It's just,
Yep.
you know that in 5 or 6 years, you're going to collect this chunk. 6 years, you're going to collect this chunk
Right.
until that's fully paid off.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Guaranteed income for the next 5 to 7
There
years.
you go. All right, over on to page number 5, it's your income statement. We call this statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, profit loss statement. You know, so money that came into the city And we call those revenues. You got the main categories you guys are familiar with, your property taxes, your pension governmental revenue, which is predominantly your local government aids. And then below there, the middle section of that page is expenditures. So that's how that money was spent. All right, so through the first 6 months of the year, each one of your governmental funds has an increase in your fund balance, or we don't call it a profit, but that's really what it is. It increase your cash balances and increase your fund balance. Okay, so one statement that might be a little bit more near and dear to everyone's heart is the budget schedule. This one really kind of tells you how well your general fund's doing. When you go over to page 6, it is an income statement, but this schedule shows the city budgets. You know, what are and how have things shaken out versus your expectations. Okay, so if we start with the column on the far left-hand side, that is your annual budget that was set last year at approximately about this time. The next column to the right is a 6-month budget. So we haven't done anything terribly fancy there. We just took your annual, divided it in half, called it your 6-month budget.
Mhm.
The next column over is actual, and then we show variance against that 6-month budget. Quite honestly, you guys are faring quite well versus the budgets that you have set. Now, obviously, we understand that certain expenditures, you know, some expenditures are very consistent throughout the month and throughout the year. Payroll, for instance, is one. Utility bills are another, but there are some things that a city pays for that is not equal. You know, first 6 months doesn't always equal the second 6 months. So I just want you to be cautious when you look at this to understand that. But as I look at this page here, what I want to point out, if we come to we look at the actual column and we bring that all the way down and look at the third number from the bottom. You'll see a number there. We call that change in fund balance. All right, so we don't say profit loss in the government world, we say change in fund balance, but that's a positive number. So that's an increase, or you could call it a profit. $166,000 over the first 6 months. Excellent results, absolutely fabulous results there. Now, of course, that can turn really fast.
Yeah.
You know, there's some things that can come up. There can be some street repairs, there can be some other things, you know, capital outlay that you guys were talking about with the repair of the plow truck. But that's really good. I don't know if you guys have had a 6 months schedule that has gone quite that well. You know, what's really nice to see, however, if we look at the very far right-hand column, that column represents your percent of remaining budget. And that's really important. So if we look at the very bottom line, that's 66%. So of your expenditures, your budget, you still have 66% of your budget remaining to carry you forward with the next 6 months. All right, so if things shake out as you anticipate them, you're going to see some really good results for the end of the year. Okay.
A lot of our expenses do run at the end of the year though, so, you know, that,
Yep, they tend to.
And we were down one employee, probably in May and June, probably 2 months of this audit.
Yep.
So that would add up, you know, and now it'll be more of the second half than the first half.
Yeah, so I don't think you're going to come out far ahead, but I think you can extrapolate some of the results that you see here that first 6 months into that second, of course. All right, so we move over to page number 7. We'll just real quickly talk about this page in front of us. So this is again, it's a balance sheet. However, this is for your, what we like to call your business type activities. All right, we call them business type activities because they're required to operate and run like a business. So what you see there is your water fund, your sewer fund, and your refuse fund. Okay. As I look at this page, there's an awful lot of numbers there, a lot of information that's really isn't terribly relevant to you folks. But there is one number on here that I do want to point out because it's becoming an issue and it's something that's cropped up over the last few years. If we go to this from the left-hand side, you move over one column in, that's the sewer fund. And I want you to focus in on that very first line there under cash and cash equivalents. You'll see a number of 137,424. It's in parentheses. All right, so we know what that means. That's a deficit.
Mhm.
And that's something that I would like to suggest or recommend to the council to look to correct that deficiency. Now, it doesn't mean that you're overdrawn in the bank. You guys understand this. It just simply means that that sewer fund has overspent its available resource. All right, so there's some really easy ways to correct that. The first and the most direct way is to transfer money. You know, move it out of the general fund, liquidate either, cash or some of your investments and place it in that sewer fund to bring it back up into positive territory. The other approach is to increase user fees. And increase that user charge to the extent where you can gain ground every year and start to bring yourselves back into a more level footing. And you can also take a hybrid approach where you say, okay, we know that it's going to take some time. If we do adjust our rates, you certainly aren't going to correct this deficit overnight. That deficit wasn't generated overnight. So it's a little bit foolish to think that you can fix that overnight. So what you could potentially do is borrow money to that sewer fund with the expectation that you can increase your rates to sufficiently create some cash flow and then pay that loan back over whatever terms that the council feels.
We did do that 2 years ago, right?
Mhm.
When the main thing, did we move 180 some thousand or was
It
it?
was 150,000.
150? So is that debt there? I'll just call it debt. Is that still remaining from that
Yes.
time when we did that work?
Yes.
So did we ever talk about making a second move on our
We
money?
did, we've talked
That's
about
what I
it,
thought.
and we've asked clerk to get a hold of you and find out the way to do it. So that the best way, so that we don't have a problem,
Well,
later.
It's gonna boil down to what is the intention of the council? Do you want to fix it immediately? You can make that transfer. If you plan to do a transfer, what you're required to do by statute is create a resolution. State, the amount that you want to move over there, where it's coming from. And that is a permanent transfer. It's money that's just gonna
Yeah.
reside in the sewer fund. So that's one option. Your other option is to create a loan. Or you borrow money from presumably the general fund, place that in the sewer fund, and then create terms or repayment terms. You can charge interest, you can have a zero interest loan, whatever you choose, and then decide how long you want to make that repayment term.
Right,
So, and if you're gonna go that route, it'd be the same process. You gotta create that resolution stating all the details of that interfund loan.
I think we decided or talked about, just, remember Jim?
We had to
talked
make it
about just
solvent.
moving the money over from the general fund.
Right.
Pretty sure we did at that time, and we talked about it. We just wanted to be sure from you, the legal and proper way to do
We
it,
moved it
and,
right and took it from the right source.
yeah.
And how does it work? We have a fair amount of future improvements in sewer, probably 180,000. Or around there. That we had that lagoon payment for so many years, we don't, that's still rolling in there. And we did that last month. We've got all these future improvement dollars. That doesn't take into account, that's a different
What we're
line.
looking at here isn't budgets, we're looking at balances. All right, so this is again, cash in the bank. Cash in the bank, investments, receivables, those sorts of things. So if you set a budget for future improvement and you don't consume that budget, you don't spend it, then naturally it will add to your checkbook at the end of the year. And that's kind of the trick where you can set a budget and that's great, but if those budgets don't come through in the way that you anticipate, so if you have a budget for future improvements, let's say 50,000. But you end up going over budget in repair and maintenance. Let's say you go over 25,000. Well, then at that point, you didn't spend your future improvement. It doesn't move into the checkbook. Really what you have there is a $25,000 excess that will then end up in your checkbook.
Right,
So you got to be careful on that side. So what I suggest is don't look at these items with tunnel vision. You need to look at the entire operation of that sewer fund and say, how did it perform overall in relation to its entirety of its budget?
Well, when we had that bond payment to make, it was like, I think the last one was like 65 or $8,000. Prior to that, it wasn't only like 62 maybe. And these rates were enough to cover that every year. And with that being paid for, I think almost 2 years ago now, that 60-some thousand that's created would pay this debt off, right?
Yes, and you are gaining ground, and we'll look at that just momentarily. So
okay,
it's not that you're falling back every year. You
right,
are gaining some ground. It's just gonna take some time, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't point out some of these situations so that you're aware of what's happening. Now, if you recall back a few years ago, you guys went through and lined a lot of your, I don't know if you line necessarily, but you televised a number of your lines. You put some
we
significant
did mind,
effort into improving that sewer utility, which is very important and very prudent, but that does cost dollars, real dollars, and that's kind of what's been going on with that sewer.
And I mean, it would just make it look better if that was solvent. That'd be in parentheses if it was
Yep.
$50,000. would look.
try to get it up into that, yeah, get it into a positive, dollar amount, get it into the black.
Well, then we should direct work to put that on the agenda, an action item next. Whatever next meeting is that we have, whether we have one more this month or next month or whenever, but
Yeah.
that'll be an action item then. And have that resolution ready. And if you need Greg's input on that. That's what we talked about.
Journal entry.
We talked about that before. We wanted that done, so.
And we just want it from the general.
Hmm.
And it's coming from the general. We're not gonna,
Yeah.
okay, do a hybrid or, okay.
So if you go back to page 4, though, the original top line, general account cash equivalents. Right at the end of June 30th, I take away at $269,000. If we took $150,000 out of there, it would get pretty narrow on the operating money.
As of June 30. However, remember, you have, if you go down the line, you have 120,000 in receivable.
Yeah.
For the LGA. And then 2 lines below that, you have your property tax bill. So you have
340.
$250,000. You know, if this was a July 31 statement, your general fund would look a lot better.
Then that money was
What I'd
in
like you
there.
to focus in on, Robert, is the unassigned fund balance, all the way down at the bottom third line from the bottom on page 4. That number better represents the net worth of the general. That's a little over $1 million.
Yeah.
And that includes now cash that you have in the checking. It includes your investments that you're holding and maybe receivables as well.
Okay.
Well, it's not all cash, but you can give it, you can think of it as, cash that can be used.
All right.
So it would make sense to take it from that general fund. There's plenty of resources there to be able to get that back into positive territory.
And when does the second half come? They collect taxes now Monday from Lewis County.
Takes them a little while to get it over to you guys.
And then
That's-
does it come in December of this business?
Late December.
Okay, but it will be in this business here yet.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, so, overall, your utility funds are faring quite well. You have a strong balance sheet. Absent the issue that we're just talked about with that sewer fund. If we move over to page 8. Again, this is your utility funds, those business type funds that are required to be operated like a business, meaning they need to make some profit, and continue to gain ground. You see each of those funds there, water, sewer, and refuse. Again, it's difficult to look at some of these things and say, okay, how are we doing? Can we extrapolate the first 6 months into the next 6? I think you have a better option of doing that, or better opportunity to do that with the utility fund, because your costs are more continuous in that regard. Again, your salaries, your supplies, utility charges, all sorts of things are pretty even throughout the year. So if we just focus on that water fund, again, let's look at the third line from the bottom, that change in that position to profit loss. The water fund has approximately $20,000 of profit over the first 6 months. Very good. That's exactly what we want to see. You don't need to make oodles and oodles of profit there, but you certainly want to slowly gain ground, because you guys very well know any infrastructure improvements, anything that comes up, those water main breaks are terribly costly. So you want to always try to, when you're able, gain a little bit of ground and put some money in the bank. We move one column to the right, that sewer fund. Again, in parentheses, almost $12,000 loss on the year. Now, I will say, and I don't want to get terribly deep in the accounting lingo, that loss, that parentheses, doesn't necessarily mean that your cash in your checking went down $20,000 the first 6 months. And the reason for that has to do with depreciation. So hopefully you guys are familiar with that concept that we've talked about in the past. That depreciation is a charge to profit and loss, but it's not a check that's being written. Okay, so if we look at the sewer fund, you've got approximately $31,000 of depreciation. Well, if we back that out, you've almost got $20,000 of profit.
Yeah.
Okay, again, not an equal cash increase, because there's some other things that are operating there that I don't want to get into. But it doesn't look as bad as that paper would suggest. All right, so you are gaining some ground each and every year. It's just not enough to get that checkbook back into positive territory. So an infusion of cash from the general, if that's what you choose, I think is improvement.
Okay.
How do we gain money in the refuge fund? Because I thought that was just supposed to be, they come in, haul the garbage down, we pay the bill. Thought that was supposed to be a wash, or is there a little?
It should be, and some of this could very well be timing. You know, so timing of when you pay your bill versus when you collect from your customers. But I think if you were to look at your refuse fund over the last few years, you are just about breaking even.
Just
That's
about.
really what you know, because if you think about it, all you have is your payments to your hauler. So you don't have repair maintenance, you don't have wages, things of that nature. You just want to make sure that you're collecting enough money to be able to turn around and make those payments.
The other thing we have to remember is it costs something to account for all that and bill all that and make sure everybody is paying all that and everything. you
Well,
know,
refuge is on the quarterly water bills.
In the so, yeah, that's what I mean, you know, it's an additional charge to the city for that, you know, I mean, it costs something to do all that.
And then some years you've gone down. I know we've talked about this in the past, and I don't know what the current practice is, or at least I can't recall. You guys still do your spring cleanup?
Yeah.
I think that's something that has been a drag on that refuse fund because the bill would come from, is it Waste Management or LGP?
LGP.
And it was coded to the refuse fund because it's a refuse charge. Well, if you're not contemplating that in your rate structure, it doesn't belong there. And I think that's been corrected, Ashley.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
But I think it's now sits in the general fund.
Yeah, it is.
For a city service,
It's a service.
yes, where it's not something that you're trying to collect from customers. Yep. So, from what I'm seeing here, and you're right, Robert, to key in on that, you know, a $10,000 profit isn't ideally what you want to see. But I believe most of that just has to do with timing. You know, the payment that was for June's payment may very well have been paid in July or later, and it make its way in.
Yeah,
So a better evaluation of that refuse fund will be your annual audit.
and it's usually, like you said, pretty much a wash then. Yeah.
You're gonna go up and down every year, but you just want to break even.
Right.
All right, so those are the financials. If there aren't any other questions, I'll just make a few comments. I think you guys are doing a good job. Again, one of the few cities out there without an awful lot of debt. You've been able to maintain your infrastructure without overly leveraging yourselves. Sometimes you have to do that, you know, especially with these larger projects. But you're well positioned, you know, especially that general fund with $1 million of fund balance. That's very good. It is absolutely wonderful.
We're kind of striding towards rural tax increase this year.
I saw that.
Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
No
Let's
comment.
hear from that guy.
No comment. You know, it really depends on your philosophy and how you want to run your city. You know, zero increase isn't really a zero increase. You know, if you think about inflation. Zero increase is really, you're kind of falling back a little bit, you know, but if you've had to make large increases in the past, when you were required to, and now you're wanting to kind of toe the line a little bit more, that certainly makes sense. I will say that your general fund is healthy, you know, so I think you can certainly manage a zero. I wouldn't recommend doing that in the long term, you know, over more than 1-2 years at most, because you've got to move with inflation at least. You know, inflation is very, very high right now, but annualized, it's probably more in that 5-6% range. If you look at your peer neighbors in the county here in Blue Earth County, and then even Faribault County and some of the neighboring, it's not uncommon to see a 12, 13, 14% increase in levies.
Yeah.
So we probably as a city have a $24,000 debt hanging over our heads that we backed here, 3 years ago? That's in discussion now.
Sure.
When it's time to pay that up, it just comes out of the general, and would you just call it a bad business decision? What would you do? How would you list it?
I would call it bad debt.
Bad debt.
Bad debt.
Yep. We'd write it off and we'd call it just uncollectible receivables, what it ends up becoming. You know, hopefully you can limit your exposure to that. I think it was a 50% guarantee, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
Also, you're not on the hook for the entirety of it. But yeah, it's one of those things, and and really you're a city, you're not a bank. You're making decisions that are gonna impact the city, the quality of life here. And that was what your intent was. And sometimes the best laid plans don't turn out the way you want them to. If you ran your city like a bank and like a a profit driven kind of an activity, you wouldn't have made those kind of bets, and that's. And sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't, but that would be what the accounting standards would require of us. We'd have to remove that receivable and call it basically bad debt expense at that point.
Well, just so you know, we're not just leaving it lay either. We are pursuing it.
Sure.
Pursuing collection.
And hopefully the county's been generous in that regard, or at least understanding as well.
Well, anything, if say we went to bat and it's cost us $7,500 to go to court, just a number. And we get $25,000 payment. They want half of that 25,000, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, the city being paying with the lawyer debt, we would only gain $5,000, but you know what? We talked about it at the last meeting, we've entered 2 of these and they both failed. So if we figured it's not fair to these people here, if we don't at least try to go after them. Because if you sign a promissory note, which has happened, you put your name on that dotted line, we as a city can come back at you.
Absolutely.
So this time, we're taking it farther, just,
Okay.
where they'll go anywhere, we don't know.
And it can set a precedent as well.
That's
So if you're
right.
not willing to.
That's
Exactly it.
exactly
require
right.
People to
Yeah.
honor their commitments to the city. If it were to come up again, somebody could have a pretty strong argument to say, well, you let this debt
Bingo.
kind of walk away. I'm having financial struggles as well. I know you guys have kicked around setting up a formal EDA in the past, which, again, is a great idea, but certainly go into that eyes wide open. But again, you do set that precedent. No different than when you forgive, water bills. Somebody has a hose on, they didn't realize it, their son left it on and it ran, over the weekend while they're gone. You forgive it, it's hard to tell the next person that you can't.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Well, if you just write it off, there's no repercussions. So at least there could be a little bit of repercussion here.
Yeah. Okay, well, good discussion. So those are the financials. Like I said, I think the city's doing well. No major red flags other than, some of the stuff that we've already talked about. Now, the other report that we provide over this semi-annual mid-year audit, if you will, is what we call in my profession a agreed upon procedures engagement. All right, why we call it that is because it isn't necessarily an audit per se, but we do apply some audit procedures based on what the city feels is appropriate. All right. So this report, I don't believe I got any page numbers on here, unfortunately, but it's a 3-page report discussing the procedures that you guys requested that we perform, and then the results against those procedures. All right. So I hope everyone's had a chance to look at those. If there are questions on any one of them, I believe we have 6 procedures that we did perform. Were there any questions on any of the results that we found over those 6 different procedures?
Well, I think it's encouraging, like the receipts, all receipts were coded appropriately.
Absolutely.
The disbursements were valid for public purposes and coded appropriately. And we've made strides.
Yeah. It's an improvement.
And I guess the April, one reconciliation was late, but all the others were done right. And the only comment I have is that we need to see that. We need to see the recons at our meetings. So from now on, we do need to see that.
Sarah's reviewed them.
Yeah,
When
I
I
think-
talked with Paul at the thing, he said, you guys can review them before, but don't discuss them in the meeting because we'll end up in the weeds about things we don't need to be in the weeds about. You already approved the bills and whatever, but they're on my desk. You can see.
Yeah, I did look at them. I thought I don't know if you looked at them too or not yet, but I did look at them. And then she's got them for you to look at too.
Yeah.
He just recommended the council, so.
Yeah.
Just need to know.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe I
But the-
should have rewritten or rewritten that representative of the council.
okay.
Yeah, so it
Okay.
doesn't necessarily have to be in an open meeting. It could be part of a consent agenda. It could be somebody that's designated from the council to review those prior to the month end or prior to the meeting. After month end and look just to make sure that it's completed. You know, I think that's one of the best things that you can do as a council. We talk about, and we're not gonna tonight, but we talk about internal controls a lot, right? You've got a clerk treasurer that holds an awful lot of accounting responsibilities. And it requires oversight, you know, and requires that attention and looking at those bank reconciliations. Number one, tells you that everything went through the bank is in your accounting system, you know, so you can rely on the financial reports, the financial numbers that you receive to know that, yes, these are valid, these are accurate. You know, things might not always be in the perfect place in the financials, and that's why we come in and do what we do. But at least you know overall where your bottom line is, and I think that's very, very important.
And I see that we had one payroll summary was incorrect or something there, but so we missed one payroll deposit. There again, though, we've made strides. It's better than we had.
Payroll is it's a challenge, and it's continued to be a challenge over the past handful of times that I've come out with the city. I do think you're right. I feel that there is some improvement. You know, really what you're striving for is to get it right every time.
Right.
There isn't a reason why it shouldn't be right every time. And I think it just takes, again, you know, I've talked with Ashley, it's just follow those checklists. You know, one of the things that I tell my staff in our office, we do a number of payrolls ourselves. When you start something like that, you don't put it down. Well, unfortunately, in her role, it's difficult not to, you know, when the phone rings or somebody stops in to pay a bill or deal with some kind of city service, it's hard. And when you get stopped and stop and restart, that's where things can potentially go undone or missed. So I think it's very, very important for you to, I know you have some checklists, you know, each payroll. This is my process. I go through it. I do exactly the same thing every time so that if you were to overlook something, it would come to light a lot easier. You just follow those same steps.
Is there any repercussions from the federal as far as late filings?
Yeah, I think we did know that there were some. Forget where it was. We did see on the third page, we can go over these observations, be like, observation number 5. There were some penalties and interest required. There's some misfiled federal payroll.
That's including 21 also too, right?
There is some portion of that does, yes.
Yeah.
I believe there was some carryover for that.
Would that just be like the last 2 weeks of 21 that come into this
It's
year?
hard to tell, it possibly, but with those notices, it's very difficult sometimes to determine where that was generated from, you know, because as you guys probably know, you read the news, the IRS is not up to date on anything, you know, so if you make a mistake, and that's part of the problem too, is if you make a mistake or you miss something, a lot of times you don't know about it for 6 months. You know, where the state of Minnesota is a little bit more timely on those sorts of things, so it can mushroom. So if you do something wrong, you can just continue marching along thinking everything is on the up and up. And then you get the notice, you got those penalties, those interests, you gotta make that payment. Got to change your process to make sure that you don't do it again. So it takes some time for that to kind of work its way through the machinery of the IRS. I do want to point out, while we're talking about observations, observation number 6, since you guys are probably on that third page, there was an extra payroll tax deposit made April of 22. We kind of described what we found there and why that happened. Again, it's an honest mistake. It happened. But we are recommending that the first quarter 941 is amended to make certain that you have the accurate and correct information recorded on it.
And
How do you get confirmation that it was amended?
Don't know if you actually get notice from that. So if there's a refund due, the IRS will send you a check and return those monies. If the amendment requires you to provide more tax, let's say you underpaid your taxes, then you would have a notice that would come through. But here's the bigger issue is when you amend your 941, You've got to do it on paper. Can you file it? And it could take 12 months to hear back.
So they wouldn't take that credit and put onto the next payroll's filing. They're not in the accounting
Yeah,
business.
so and it's very likely you received it back, would be my guess. So if you make a deposit and they don't have, and you haven't notified the IRS that you made that deposit, they'll just ship it right back to you. And it might be in a queue somewhere, so maybe you haven't received it. You do your 941X, you amend those, send it out in the mail, and you're gonna probably cross paths with the check coming back. So it's one of those things where you don't want to make those kind of mistakes because it can mushroom into so many other issues. Dealing with the IRS right now isn't pleasant by any stretch. So again, I think just take your time, go slow, be certain everything that you're doing. And get ready for time. So
I do have a question about the electronic payments. How are we not seeing that? I don't understand where they go that we don't see those somehow. How does that happen?
So we, in the form with the recon, we print out the text in them now, and it shows the electronic ones, so like Excel, Consolidated, those are all electronics. So that's all on there now, so Sarah's viewing those. and
Mhm.
you can view
Why
those.
wouldn't they be on our disbursements page?
Well, I'm sure they are, but this is like an actual printout of every single, like, the IRS, Capera, all those are on.
Yeah, but I think Tom wants specifically the payroll, right?
Well, any electronic payment, I just, why don't they show on bills paid? On the page it says bills paid?
how are you generating that report?
So our bills that we have that they approve in the spreadsheet, so like Consolidated and Excel, they're all on there. Yeah, it's not a.
Yeah, this is something I know your predecessor started. I wasn't a fan of it. You know, honestly, I think there should be, and I don't know if Paul or Luke showed you while they were here performing that mid-year, there's a really nice report. I don't know if it's mentioned in here, but we can certainly give you some information on that. Where it shows all disbursements that went through that checkbook, whether they're
Yeah,
ACH, EFT, it doesn't make any difference what it is. There are other reports that you can provide the council that they basically call it claims lists for approval.
Mhm.
That's a little bit different than what's already been paid. That's information as well, that once you're comfortable that your bank recs are done timely, which they are, you print these reports, you can save yourself loads of time, not having to type in every one of those that are made, because the more that you keystroke this information in, there can be some errors, there can be some oversights or something missing. It's a much better system to print it directly in Banyan. And Banyan's got wonderful reports that you can include with every one of these council packets so that the council can be certain that we are now seeing all these electronic payments.
Yeah, since Paul's been here, with the recons, we've been printing out the monthly checks that have been signed too.
That's perfect.
well, can we have you send the information to,
I think you did you get it while they were here. I believe.
Yeah, I'm already doing it, yeah.
Yeah.
so that we can actually see that?
And what's
On
the
our-
benefit of doing this? I've always been a little unsure why that it's gotta take an awful lot of time, right? To write that up.
Well, yeah,
Probably more time than it would be to hit print on a report would be my guess. So even if it's an hour to put the spreadsheet together, you can print a report to give you the same information, you know, almost at the snap of a finger. That's how I would do it.
This is like the second or third time we've heard that, and I just can't, and I've never understood before, but we're all learning together here. We're not.
Like an awful lot of extra.
Not auditors.
When she answers AR stuff, that goes into that report then?
What do you mean by?
I mean, bills and all those
Yes.
stuff. Okay, they just.
Absolutely. Yep. So when you put that in, so I don't know if you have the ability, if you've been given the power to make payments between meetings. You know, for certain items that are very consistent, bills being probably the biggest. You guys have a credit card, you know, that would be another one, some utility payments, things that need to get paid. I know there was a few years back, or maybe not even a few years, where there was some late payments that were happening because, you know, I don't want to completely throw the US Post Office under the bus, but mail's a little bit slower in the COVID era. And we saw this across a lot of the cities that we audited. And so I thought that you guys went forward with allowing her to make some of those payments so that you don't incur finance charges and things of that nature. So you're gonna want to get two reports, that bills paid, here's what's been, and I think it should be very clear that these are bills that we paid between meetings. Here are the bills that we're presenting to the council for payment tonight.
Mhm.
Okay,
And we call that claims list. Claims list for approval versus here's what's already gone through the checkbook for the month.
That's
And the
what we
one that's
need.
already gone through will include those electronic payments, whether it's payroll
Yeah.
taxes and anything else of the sort.
That's exactly what we need. Between the two of you, I'm hoping that we can get all of this
And I think we can make like,
so that we can really look at it, because it really is hard to weed through all the information and figure out everything that, that report would make life a lot simpler.
well, and really, the financial side of the meeting is just a very short
Yeah,
couple of minutes, right?
Yeah.
It's very, very important. So the more you can get that information in a usable, readable format, the better off.
please do make that happen so that we can get that all done by next meeting.
when you had the recon or like the reconciliation and then she did have that, so you could see that. After the meeting, Tom, I did look at those two forms.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're asking for too.
Yep, but to the letter of the law, state does have. Call it what it is, a law that says those items need to be presented. Paid between meetings to include electronic disbursements and then anything that's presented. Excuse me, that would be paid at today's meeting after your approval.
Very good.
I guess you gotta ask about observation 3. Now, my name is on that check. I specifically gotta ask what this stuff is for. I mean, when it comes on this here where our bills are. How do you figure if it should be paid or not? Or if you got scammed or not?
It's a great question. I think I would suggest, and what I typically recommend to, councils that have a combined, that you have an expectation. I know that's easy to say, hard to put into action, but have an expectation. What do we expect? And I'll give you for instance, so you're looking through your bills to be paid. If you recognize vendors that you're not familiar with, that's outside your expectation, right? So you would expect to see payroll. You'd expect to see bills from Xcel Energy, let's say, for instance, and some of the supplies that are necessary to run the utility funds, water and sewer. A payment from LJP or payment to them. So it's expectations. Have we approved? Do we talk about large equipment purchases in the prior meetings, and those sorts of things? And I haven't seen, Robert, I haven't seen that page that you're looking at. I don't know if it includes a purpose. But if it does not, I think that would be one great way to help you further understand what that expectation should be. So if you see the vendor that's listed in observation number 3, and it says toner cartridges, we talked about that in the past. I would hope that someone here at this table would recognize that and say, wait a second, what are we doing? We've already talked about this vendor, unscrupulous. Maybe we should hold on this payment and not process that.
Well, was this a follow through from last year?
Yes.
How does this happen?
I'm not certain. I guess I don't. I can only speculate, and that usually gets people in trouble, so I don't want to speculate. But it is something that we talked about at the mid-year audit last year in 21.
Yep, and I think we discussed it at a
You
few.
can see the dollar amount in total that's been spent with that vendor. And our recommendation last year was to create an approved vendors list.
Huh.
And that's another way that you can have that expectation. And I think, Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you mentioned that there is one. So one of the ways that you can do that and make certain that you are paying bills from vendors that you have pre-approved. You got your vendor list here, you got your bills for approval here, you go down the line. I think you see some of the same ones every month, so you should get comfortable with that.
Well, what happens if it came and you just turn around and mail it back to them? Instead of accepting it, just turn around and mail it right back.
Well, here's the thing. So if the goods and services were ordered and delivered, that's the question for the attorney, whether or not you can say, we're not paying this, you could ship it back. I think you could certainly do that. You know, but once those services are requested or consumed, you really don't have much of a leg to stand on to deny making that payment.
So something like this, would you ever go to a purchase order number? So something out of the ordinary that's on this list that's here, would you have to have a purchase order number to even take it any farther to get it? I mean, if it was just sent and delivered to this address, are we responsible to pay for it?
Yes and no, you know, that's a tough question. I think it's really more specific to each individual item. You know, so if you request services and somebody performs services, you're married to that contract, whether it's implied or explicit. You know, with goods that are received at City Hall, you certainly can, you take receipt of those and you can look at it and say, this isn't what we ordered, this isn't gonna fit our expectations, or this doesn't work for us. You absolutely have the opportunity to ship those back. You go to the website, one of the reasons why these people operate the way they do, right on the website, it says there's no returns, no, you know, trade-ins, no exchanges, nothing like that, all sales are final. And there's a reason. Because they're not a very reputable business.
Have they ever turned into the Better Business Bureau?
I think they operate out of Colorado. So it wouldn't hit here in Minnesota, but yeah, they certainly don't have a good reputation.
We've supported them.
Does the city have an option to take those cartridges if we don't need them and try to sell them to recoup some of that money? Is that an option that we're ever allowed to take?
I suppose you could, yeah. You can't, obviously can't give them away. But you could attempt to resell them. You know, you don't wanna, two wrongs don't make a right, of course, so you wouldn't wanna, I mean, to recoup what you put in there, you'd have to.
But these cartridges, I think, came in at $500 and you can go down to wherever they're in them supply stores and they're probably 175, 200
Or less.
or less. Okay, so, okay.
You know, and to answer your question about a PO, you know, I don't know if that would have corrected this situation. To start working with a purchase order number and go through that. We don't work with a lot of small communities with the office staff that you have that use a PO, you know, because who would start it, who would originate it, who would accept it? It's just, I think it would overburden the process. It's a little bit maybe overburdened already. And I think what we've recommended is it's ideal. Here are the vendors that you're allowed to purchase from. In no uncertain terms. Do not use any vendors outside of this list. If you find one that you need to utilize because you didn't recognize it at the time, then you bring it to the council and you add this vendor to the list and make that payment.
Well, I guess it's enough on that, but observation number 6 and that 1877, say that comes back to the city now. Should that be duly noted on a piece of paper?
Yep.
So all of us see that we did get that back.
Not certain if you report revenues that come in, receipts that come in. I think you're more focused on.
But it's kind of a fine, you know, and if we don't follow through, we might not know if he ever got it back as a city.
True.
So I mean, would that be a recommendation that a guy, when that comes back, that it is a line item or it is a separate piece of paper that, yes, we got 1877 back on our 941 that was overpaid.
You certainly could.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, it's anybody's guess when it's gonna be.
Yeah, but I mean, so it takes 12 months.
But
You get it.
out there, yeah.
You get a check from the IRS, say a year from now. Who's gonna remember what it was for? Or do they put it on there?
There's a memo on it.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
Sometimes the check ends up in the city office before the memo shows up. We're certainly gonna make note of it in the audit, and we'll likely record a receivable. And we make record of that, so we're gonna continue to look for this payment to come back through,
Okay,
so.
very good. All right. Probably see you in 6 months or
Hey,
All right.
give or take. But don't get hit by any deer coming out. All over.
There is a lot out right now.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
I'll work with Ashley and see if we can get those reports.
I don't know whether you're getting better at explaining or I'm just listening more. Been like the
I think you guys.
Tenth time I'm hearing it now. I'm starting to understand more.
All right, thanks, Greg. Okay, we'll move on to reports. Good Thunder Fire Department, month of August had 9 calls. September 5th or September was 5 calls. Fire Prevention Week is October 10th to the 14th. And the pancake breakfast is what date? 30.
The 30th.
30th.
I think I put the flyer in.
Flyers right there.
Yeah, it's in our packet, I think, too.
Yeah.
October 30th.
October 30th. Anybody have questions on that?
Kind of encouraging after COVID now.
It
Yeah,
really,
you
well,
couldn't-
they had one in the spring, didn't they?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it's nice.
Sheriff's report, 74 hours of patrol for August, 60. Did I get the old one? 60 hours for August or
60 hours for September.
must be for September. 60 hours for September. Anybody got any comments about our police service? Good, bad, staying the same?
I thought we were gonna get a deputy here on this meeting. Nicole.
Nicole asked if we were having a meeting with her to discuss enforcement, because people seem to be not happy with her and going over her head, but no one has talked to her. So I think she would like to meet with us, but I don't know if you guys want
That's
it.
quite an inference. I'd be careful with that.
I don't know how you want me to say it. How she should enforce things, I guess.
And that's what we should be talking about then.
Yeah.
Our ordinance,
That'd probably be a separate, like, little workshop. How about?
Well, yeah, I don't know how you guys want to do this.
how does somebody go over her head?
Calling the sheriff. Yep, the sheriff himself.
Calling her
Any
superior, perhaps?
supervisor or anything, but that's life.
Yeah.
That's, and if you don't. Don't.
I'm just telling you guys, if we have a liaison, usually we go to the liaison. If we have an issue, we don't call Barb and say
We did though.
vehicle parked there. I don't know what to tell you guys. I'm just the middle person here.
The thing is though, the truth be, the rubber hit the road, right? It did. I noticed it sure stopped.
Thank God.
The issue just ended. I don't know whether it was your call, somebody's call did it. I didn't call, but.
I made a call and talked to Kyle right after that meeting when we talked.
Three
about
of
it.
you were instructed to call, so.
I didn't call nobody.
No, okay, well, somebody got through, so.
I sure did.
Yeah.
And the issue's her. So when the issue is her, then you go above her head.
Yeah, it's just how it is.
Correct.
We weren't being effective before and so.
Mhm.
Hey,
Well, as a council in general, like if I had a problem with her, I would go to her before I went above her head. And I don't think she's talking about like citizens doing
Yeah,
that.
no, it wasn't about.
Because citizens always have the right to call somebody. else.
anybody, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. there you go.
That's not I don't think that was the issue at all. So,
I believe we need a private meeting then.
Okay.
To talk it over,
little workshop.
whatever.
Set it up,
Another meeting.
yeah, set it up,
Oh, he's doing.
Go with the bang.
Alrighty,
Meetings meet.
because we don't want to dirty the water at all, because again, we're getting along just great, and I think that other than that one or two issue. It's been very good.
And if you think about it, that track record's pretty good.
Pretty good, so for whatever reason.
Yeah.
That was a problem, and.
Yep.
It took care of it, so.
I think our service sucks. I never see a cop drive around, very seldom around my neighborhood up there.
we'll get to community comment in a minute here. So anything else in under,
I don't have anything.
okay. Now we're under community comment. Anybody? Bob, do you want to make a comment about?
When we used to have our own police officer, you saw them around town here. the sheriff department. They make a quick circle up there and they're gone. I mean, nobody sits and listens to these muscle cars or these motorcycles tearing out of town,
Or the trucks coming into town.
or the trucks coming into town.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Very,
keep that
I
up.
do see them up on this
No.
end sometimes. I come home from work, I see them sitting up.
I
there.
can sit in my kitchen and look out the window and I'll tell you who's going by the apartments 40, 45.
Yeah, I bet you can.
You know?
And they floor it the second they come in.
They sit up here by the city office or somewhere, arrest some of these.
You know, what you need to do, Bob, really is call it, when you see that, I mean, you have the experience, you can tell. If they're going fast or slow or whatever, you can call the 911 and say, hey. I'm seeing these trucks go by here on Sherman Street. We need to get something done, and they'll do something about it.
Getting bad when they got a Jake break on the corner over here coming up the hill.
Right.
Mhm.
Right,
I don't know much about trucks, but I don't think that's usually when they're used.
I think when Kyle was our individual, I don't know where he even lives, he kind of made this either the beginning of his day or the end. I seen him a number of times go by my house at 6 AM.
oh, yeah,
A lot of times, and I have to admit what Bob said, I do not see them in the AM anymore. Now, did it get less because we don't have a school, but we still got tots getting on a bus,
Right.
multiple places.
Yeah.
You know,
I see them sometimes when I'm leaving town coming in, but
no, I do too.
not, you know,
I think that's just all things we can discuss when we talk to him.
yep.
This is another reason to talk to her. Or him or whoever our liaison.
all right, anybody else under community comment?
I do have a question. I received a letter in regards to a camper. So I asked around. And everybody that I did talk to said they knew nothing about this. I've talked to my neighbors, not have a single comment or concern about the camper sitting there. Let's see here, how does it state?
Yeah, I did see that.
The property you own has been determined by the Good Thunder City Council to constitute a public nuisance. When I asked questions to the members of the council, or my father asked questions, nobody said this has been discussed. If mine is a problem, if mine's a problem, why don't we take a little bit of a trip around this town? And I'll show you a lot of problems in this town. I mind my own business. I take care of my own property. I keep to myself. But there's a lot worse. How should I word this? Establishments or extensions of the Ponderosa landfill or
Oh, yeah.
B&R. Is that what, I mean, B&R is cleaner than some of these properties in this town.
Mhm.
I take 100% offense to this letter. Mine moves, I use it all the time. I might not, it might be there more than 48 hours. Mine is licensed, mine is insured, and it's up to date, it's clean. It's not a rat hole infested garbage dump. So as a taxpayer in this town, I am 100% offended by this damn worthless piece of paper. You have a lot worse things to waste your time on than send me this letter.
You're not the only one that
Yeah.
got a letter for a camper.
That's good.
I'm just,
You better have sent them to everybody that has a camper in this town, not just me.
you are not the only one that got the letter.
There is 4 of them, Jim, and I know where this originated from is one that's sitting at an intersection that you cannot see around. I understand that one. Where it led to these other ones,
Well,
Because we're fair between everybody.
yeah,
We have
it's
the
in the,
ordinance.
it's in the ordinance.
We have an ordinance, and if one person that is violating the ordinance is gonna get it, unfortunately, everybody's gonna
That's
get it.
fine if everybody gets it.
Yep, and I'm not saying yours is obviously.
Those have been a extension of a garbage dump for 10 years.
No, we don't.
Agree with you.
And they're sitting there with
No.
expired plates on one.
No plates on the other. Expired
So
tabs. on
where is our
another.
sheriff department when they should be looking at that too?
It ain't
No,
just
we're-
that. There's
All we
more.
can, this is what starts that whole process. Is trying to enforce the ordinance. And
Well, that's why I said I wanted to know who this was then, because everybody I talked to said nothing like.
It was
we
me.
ever talked about.
I go out and do the properties.
Okay,
I
so
went to
you
the letter.
speak for him and him and him and her and him.
I go out with her most of the times. I didn't get to go with her this last time. I received a letter. Cause I have wood piled up on the side of my fence.
I received a letter because there's weeds in my backyard. If it's not just your camper, any camper that was there on the roadway, not moved for over 48 hours. It's in the city code. It's not that,
Does this go to personal vehicles? That's 48-hour parking too, right?
It's trailers unhitched, isn't it?
No, we have a
No.
parking ordinance on any vehicle. that
Oh, we
sits in
used
the
to.
street.
See, and the only time it would ever become a problem is if somebody complained about a vehicle. And then they'd have to go out and chalk the vehicles, but they'd have to do all of them. And then everybody would get, so then we kind of stopped enforcing that. So I'm assuming there was complaints about a couple of campers. And then when we go and do these letters, we have to do it
Well, I would
for
think
all of
our
them.
city person back in whatever year back would have been complaining for years. Go across the park. They've moved now. There was vehicles that sat there months. Flat tires, expired tabs.
I
The
know.
whole yard was full of trailers, side by sides. It's cleaned up now,
Yeah.
but that sat there for 5 years.
I know.
And if we want to pick and choose,
Can't.
exactly.
That's
So
why you
let's-
have that.
I don't care about my camper. It's
Yeah.
fine. I move it, I use it. It's gonna sit next to my little garage when I'm done with it. I don't have an issue with any of this. I have an issue with getting this letter. When I talk to people, they say they know nothing about it. So is this a personal thing? Is this vendetta? Is this divide and conquer? What is this? This.
No.
no,
Let's get the rest of these cleaned up and then let's talk.
we have to understand here though, that the clerk is deemed with that responsibility. She doesn't run it through us. That's her responsibility. It's like if the mayor was to decide that there's noxious weeds, he's the weed inspector. He doesn't run it through us. That's just the way it's set up in code. So we don't really have that prior knowledge to approve and pick and choose, I guess, if you wish.
Well, I just would not have that. I would not have somebody speaking for me. I'll speak for myself.
Yeah,
Was-
but that's.
Was the letter
that's the way it
misleading
is,
when
so.
it says through the city council?
Yes, it is.
It's a little misleading that way, but it's
But it has to say
authority
that.
given by the councils in past
How can you say
code.
that if it didn't go through the council?
Because we've given her the authority to do that because it's
Given her-
under our
given the
ordinance.
Clerk's position, that authority in years past in the code.
Clerk shouldn't have that position.
You brought up,
Well, and that might be true. And we can discuss that and talk about and
we should
change
just
that.
throw the whole code book out then, because we're not enforcing it anyways.
You're not.
I'm trying to enforce it equally for everybody.
Yep.
Is it yours a nuisance? No, absolutely not. Is the other one? Absolutely. But if I send them one, if yours isn't moved, I have to send you one because I'm trying to be fair to
I
everybody.
don't mind you sending me one, but let's get on these other ones and get something done.
I agree.
We're
I
trying.
agree,
Yeah.
100%.
when you said something about weeds, Tom, should this be included or should this fall under me?
Well, that's not all noxious weeds. That's
Just weeds in general?
weed.
Okay.
The thing is we need to try to establish some sort of basis, and that's all that she was trying to do. Was just establish a starting point, and then we go from there.
Needs to be taken care of is that one where you have to pull halfway out into the road. You see around it to know if you should go on. And I know for a fact that they've called the sheriff about that multiple times, an individual in town, because they've told me. Because they're worried about their family having to pull out there and come around. They got young kids, or if the kids are on their bikes, or if they're on something. And I know it's been multiple calls.
Then it's just
You
a
know
safety
what-
hazard and it should just almost be towed.
Oh,
And what's interesting is that when we had our own police person they couldn't do anything either. They couldn't get any junk cars moved. They couldn't get anything done either. Because when it goes to court, they just.
There
And
was
there's-
30 such letters sent out, you know, campers, weeds, solid waste, logs. Vehicle in yard, vehicle in yard, vehicle in yard, so there is. Other ones that were sent out, 30 of them with other things in their yards. What action do we take? Can we get the sheriff to go there and enforce it? That'd be a good question to ask. If we had a
Yeah,
meeting.
we can try to get that done, but we've
Yeah.
been through this so many times already, to be perfectly honest. But this is how you start. And you know what? People like you move their stuff and they do right and they keep things clean. And the people that are offenders for years and years, they do nothing.
Well, if you want the cops, just come down to my place. They sit around my goddamn place looking at us frickin' day in and day out. So
I haven't seen a cop.
That's why we need a meeting with the sheriff's department.
I'd like to.
Try to get set straight.
Please.
Well,
It would be, no, it'd be open. We have a workshop. It's an open meeting.
Meeting, yeah.
That's an open meeting. We can't, I don't think we can legally call a private meeting with the sheriff's department, and that's an open meeting.
I don't know that.
Yeah, there's only certain stipulations we can quote.
I know that's not what you meant,
Right.
but
Land
When
acquisition.
we get that set up, Grant, we will invite you.
They ain't gonna be happy with my response.
Yeah.
I'll guarantee you that.
All right. Well, Jim, I guess I hope we answered your questions. Yep, it's probably a little irritating. Nobody was weeded out.
But we
That's all
can't,
we can say.
just
you know.
it sucks.
So what's the purpose of the letters if nothing gets done about them? Why send them out then?
Because you have other people that are saying these yards don't ever get cleaned up. So you make an attempt. Some of these second letters sent out. Second, a lot of seconds, a lot of firsts.
It shows documentation and like paperwork. So then if we do decide to abate the property, we have that process that we went through.
So how many do they get?
Yeah.
There's got to be a process.
3 strikes.
Yeah.
And you tow it. That was what was said.
Yeah, that's what it used to be.
Very much a safety issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I know when we
And
lived in Lake Prospect.
Believe it or not, this is the first time that the one that in question is a hazard has been sent the first time.
Well, that's because it wasn't parks there also. It was parks. And she got a letter about it. Other location.
So now this is a new location, so it's a different situation.
Because now it's been moved, so it's basically.
It's, yeah, this is the first letter about it where it is now.
I mean, the home place and the business,
Mhm.
both.
Did
I would
one
think
for downtown.
Restaurant people would really.
There is a
Like-
process, Jen, but it takes like a year. So when we were trying to focus on junk property, it's a whole process. And if they do one little cleanup thing, it all starts all over again.
So is that something you need to reevaluate? Because would you do that with an employee? No.
It's
It's
not-
different with
it's
city
not that
stuff.
easy. You have to talk to the attorney about it because it's a legal proceeding, has nothing to do with what we want to do.
Yep. Mapleton's gone through the same thing. If you've paid attention,
If
it's
you abate a property, you have to store all those
Thousands.
materials
But they'll
for
mow
a
it.
year.
And they'll mow that grass and they'll pull those weeds and charge. We don't do nothing.
yeah.
So they get better responses than we get.
We did have it where we mowed and didn't we charge the individuals like, Robert, what was it? We made it high.
We have it in our things.
We made it high.
Every beginning of the
Right.
year.
But if they've gotten a 30-day and they've gotten a 60-day and a 90-day, then we should just automatically charge after that
And
point.
we need to go
I mean,
and abate the property, but then there's always that, does it have value and does it? You
I
know,
just think of the hours we're wasting on these letters and then we're not doing anything about them. It defeats the purpose.
One thing
agree.
we're missing is an individual to perform that
Mhm.
since May. So you got May, June, July, August, September, working on part of half of November, October. We have been with no city individual that could go do that if we got tough with it.
We really could just,
So-
you know, well, we
Like,
have
if you look at
Bob,
Summer.
he
had him all
mows.
summer, So he could have took care of all of them. I mean, really,
Yeah.
we're just not doing nothing.
If we really wanted to enforce it, we could.
That's all we're doing.
I think though, in a situation like that, we'd almost have to have somebody else down there. We rolled into somebody's property and gonna start mowing and pulling weeds.
So then we have these police officers.
Well, yeah,
That's
but
what we're paying them to do. They're doing.
I don't think- I think-
service To the community.
Yeah,
They can come sit down there.
I think other towns just, they give you that. God, it's not even that many days. They give you a couple of days and they just go mow it.
Oh, yeah, Ben's on it.
They just go mow it
Yep.
and send you the bill.
Lake Crystal. when we
Well,
Lived there, that's what
that's-
they did. They'd send you a notice, give you certain amount of days. If you didn't mow it, they mowed it and they charged you.
Mhm.
And as far as I know, they followed through on it and
That's what I mean. There's no follow through. So, okay, this letter, we just throw it in the trash because we don't do anything about it. There's no follow through. You know, there's just nothing. Oh, here's a letter. Throw it away. Wait, next month for the next one. There's no follow through.
what happens if somebody wants to be nature yard and let the grass keep growing?
There's a code against that. There has to be.
Our code is against that. We would have to
Yeah.
change our code
Yeah.
for that.
Can't have that.
So the very first house when you enter Good Thunder from the east side has not had the lawn mowed for eternity. And we allow that to happen then.
That's what I'm saying. We'll send a letter and then nothing gets done.
That's a difficult situation to mow though, just so you know.
Well, it wouldn't have been if you wouldn't have let every tree and sapling grow up every foot and a half.
No, I know, but there's a lot of stuff in there. You gotta
What
be
did that
careful.
long ago too, though? Didn't you put out a thing where they had to have vehicles moved that were unlicensed? I mean, Dale had that Studebaker sitting beside his garage for a long time. I went over, I helped him push it back into his garage.
Yeah.
'Cause he said he got some letter.
Yeah, that did happen a few years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I mean, that supposedly is in force.
it should be.
Yeah.
There's
And
another
again,
vehicle sitting up there that's got
Yep.
expired tabs.
Mhm.
I think where to start, right there.
the one,
Affordable, all three of those should be gone.
Yeah,
If
there's,
you have a city ordinance against it and you give them 3 warnings, 2 warnings, whatever, and nothing gets done, you should have the authority, since you do have a thing in place and you have given warning letters, whether they check their mail or not, maybe they get one in the mail, maybe they get one on their front door. I don't know. But right now, we're not holding anybody accountable, so it's just really a joke.
Send your sheriff, send your police to knock on the door and give it to them.
Give them a certified letter.
Gotta have-
yeah,
So you have a signature. Like I said, there's
We've done that.
nothing in place.
we've sent certified letters to an individual business. They never get their mail, so they never seen the certified letter,
Well,
so.
we have these officers that's what they're here for. They're here to help us, to serve us, to serve the community. Correct.
I know they will not take and work on dog barking, right? But will they serve papers?
that's what we need to talk to them about.
Okay.
Yep,
Blue Earth County used to
Well,
have
here-
their own.
paper service, yeah. Mhm.
You'd have a warrant officer.
civil service office, right?
We were meeting, when was that meeting? When we found out that the deputies in general through the county don't issue tickets for expired license tabs. They don't. So where does that leave us then with our?
But in our ordinances, they have to be licensed.
Right, but
So
they
they're
don't.
breaking our
Well,
ordinance.
look at our situation. There was an ordinance against motorcycle and noise. They enforced it, took care of the issue. It'd be the same thing. We have an
I
ordinance.
understand.
They're here to protect and serve. We're paying them lots of money to do these services for us.
Tri-City told us that expired tabs on private property, you can't enforce. That's what Tri-City told us when they were in place.
And I even think,
Our ordinance
GT
book
used
right
to
now,
tell us
by
that
the way,
too.
is completely wrong because it says police department, not sheriff's department. So that's part of why the county won't enforce any of our stuff. It's not cohesive. It has to be completely rewritten to be enforceable.
And
Have
that's
they
something we've talked about. how
Sent that
many-
to us.
Well, but it takes us to do that and I'm going through the whole book right now. It takes a long time to go through a book this thick
I
to
think,
change every page.
I think Kennedy drafted something putting the sheriff's department
did,
as our.
But the
chief
entire
of
ordinance book
police.
has to be changed.
When did they send us notice?
What's that?
The sheriff's department that they can't enforce it because it says police department and not.
Kennedy told us that.
Pardon?
Kennedy told us that at a meeting.
I don't know if he necessarily said they couldn't enforce it, but they said that he just said that was an issue.
Yeah, that.
We needed to
That
like
ain't hard
take care
then,
of it.
just cross it all out, put sheriff wherever police department and bring it to you, and we're done.
It isn't hard, but we need to have, these 37 pages need to have this change in it. That's,
Yeah.
I mean,
When I talked to Kyle, he said, it is difficult when it's not just one officer coming into town. When you have several officers coming into town, it's difficult because
But we do have a liaison, right?
we do, but
have
there's other
one.
officers that serve us,
Yeah, yeah.
So it's difficult for them to know how do we handle certain things. So we'd have to have this meeting and get it communicated to anybody that's going to be in our city.
Wouldn't our liaison be the one that would be doing most of this, so you wouldn't have to hand it off to another individual?
They should have to communicate on their side. That's the purpose of the liaison.
We have to communicate to the liaison.
Yep.
What we want enforced, and then they would have to communicate that to the officers. So we need to get our ducks in a row and figure out what are our most important things, and I think we know what they are. It's the vehicles, it's the properties, it's the junk. And as far as I'm concerned, the trailer is just a safety hazard. That should just be possibly towed. I mean, really, in reality, and if it's a safety hazard, it should just be. When it's the safety and health, that can be taken care of right away. So,
These two over here are on the street more so than they are in a property.
yeah,
Yep.
That should be no problem, but I'll
Yeah.
go now.
And look at how many problems we've had with that street in general, with speed and Ball Diamond.
Yep.
And there's been 6,000 problems on that road to begin with.
I don't want to wait till somebody gets hurt because they didn't see somebody.
Correct.
We have
Just
too
like
many,
This street at dusk, when the kids are playing in the middle of the street. You
the
know,
worst.
and then they get
combination.
yelled at because they're in the middle of the street. Well, you don't play there. I remember when Teresa got hit there.
We've got kids coming out from town here on mini bikes, four-wheelers, racing up and down our roads out there, then coming back in town.
Yep.
And I see nothing has been done about that. They're in there in our ditch and everything else, and I.
Do you call that in when they do
I
that?
guess follow Tom's advice, call 911 and
Yeah.
say you got many bikes on the county road.
Give them a description and call it in every single time.
Well, okay,
But
hopefully we've answered, probably haven't satisfied questions and answers, so anything else then?
But you will be, on everybody here should be, put everybody here, Ashley, on the list to get a note when we have that meeting with the deputy. So that,
Yeah.
you're all aware, whether you come or not, it's up to you, but I mean, at least you can have that opportunity. to
Yep.
come.
know about it.
Yep, good idea.
So can we touch base on that one property quick on South Halliday? I pulled up on the map, Robert, they're parked on the street, right? That's not in their yard, or they're parking right here.
Yeah, that would be
Technically,
considered the city
It's
right
in the
away.
street.
So they should, okay, I just want to make sure.
It's in the street. You can see they only got probably 15 feet in front of the house.
Frontage,
I
yeah.
mean,
Is that a sidewalk that's supposedly there in front?
I think it's under there
I
somewhere.
think the
One
neighbor
time.
to the north, the neighbor to the north cemented half of
Shovel it
the
up.
boulevard.
Well, and on the side of the yard, the cars half out in the alley a lot of times.
The white.
I had an individual come to the shop about that. At noon hours, that car is sticking with the back end of the car out in the middle of the alley.
Where you couldn't even get a fire truck through.
That's the problem. That's the worst part of it.
So, I mean,
Emergency yard was
Well-
cleaned up, they could go further in their yard.
believe us,
Yeah,
it's been an ongoing problem.
That's what I mean. This is one of the main things that need to be fixed and updated, and just the effort and time put into it and just get them updated. So we can hold these people accountable.
We'll work at it. Anybody else under community comments? Anything? If not, we can move on then to new business. 2023 tobacco license renewal Thunder Bar, 2023 liquor license renewal Thunder Bar. Didn't they used to renew at the beginning of the year, or have they always been offset?
Well, usually by like November or whatever, but she's got submitted all of her stuff, so then we submit
Okay,
it to the county for review. They send it back to us. You guys approve it, then I send it to the state, and then it comes.
It's effective the first.
Yeah,
somebody want to make a motion to approve those two license renewals? Someone second,
I'll second it.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I oppose, motion carried. Okay, zoning permits, GT 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Questions? Make sure.
Lots of questions on my part.
Okay.
Basically, almost all of them are incomplete. We can't approve. 14, 15, 16, 17. And 19, I haven't even seen. 18, Robert, you don't need one for repairing concrete in front of your shop, and R&R doesn't need one.
Well, I didn't think so, but the way it goes, I thought I better.
Just
Put it down
replacing
anyway.
existing.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly can, but anyone,
Oh,
if
here,
you're
Robert.
just R&R in
Here's another
concrete
one.
or siding or roofing, you don't need a permit.
Window replacement, as long as it's the same size and everything, you don't have to do that either.
Correct,
Nope.
just if you're changing the size of the opening, larger or smaller. But every other one of these doesn't have a site drawing, doesn't have measurements, doesn't have setbacks. So we can't approve any of them. 14, 15, 16. 19. Got a letter from Chris that says they have to have, detailed site drawings.
Basically, we can't approve them.
Yeah.
So which ones do you not want?
Well, some of them are completed. The 15 is completed and that work was done without a permit. And there's a,
That should have
there's a fine for that.
whatever that is.
I think it's $250
Is it 200?
not having a permit.
Which number?
Well, I mean, a lot of people consider that 250 to get it done, you know.
Yeah,
So which one is that?
number 15, 22, that job is done.
Oh, yeah.
14, they've got the pad prepared. But they're very close to property lines, but they don't have a drawing for it.
We can't approve them then.
Yeah, none of them have drawings pointing north, don't have setbacks and. Just because it mentions it on the front, it needs a drawing to accompany it.
I mean, we've just been kind of slowly getting more and more lax with how we're like accepting permits and. I remember, 16 years ago when we would get them, they would be detailed and have the setbacks and how far away from the house and,
Most of the time they have been though through the years.
yeah. just
These
seems
here,
like-
these here seem to be like really,
I think last year was
Really,
really
really
good. They're
basic.
pretty detailed. This
Yeah,
year,
we've gotten some really good ones. Don't get me wrong.
these here are pretty
So
lacking.
And then we don't want confusion and have people,
13, we don't have a process for renewal, although we've done it before, when Big John would come in every year and renew his permit.
Well, and Dennis renewed his.
Dennis renewed his for his garage.
So.
yeah, and we shouldn't charge for renewals, right? It just shows that they're kind of continuing their process or
But
progress.
according to Kennedy, we don't have a process for renewal.
Done after the permit ran out?
we have one straight down the
Well, no,
end of
'cause-
this street that had an ongoing building permit for how many years?
Yeah.
And it never gets done.
Yeah.
This pole shed one here, you say not to approve it?
I'm just saying there's no drawing to accompany it.
When we accept payment, it says paid. Can you deny it after you accept payment?
Well, it hasn't been approved through. council.
Payment has to
Right.
accompany the
It really
permit.
hasn't anything to do.
But I mean, so in other words, you wouldn't accept payment
No,
until you approve it?
payment has to accompany the permit application,
Right,
but you don't receive it.
right. I mean, we don't go afterwards and send a bill or whatever to get payment for the,
It's just how the process works. You submit your plans, your drawings, your payment, they approve it, they accept your payment, and they give you a card.
right.
All of these are like GT 15, that one there is,
They just said they wanted to build a peak. There was no drawings with it, and that job is actually all
Yeah,
done.
that's this one right here. It's already done.
That one's right there, it's done.
She submitted the picture today and said it was 6 by 6.
I mean, it looks great.
but it wasn't in the original.
It was just a siding job that they just.
Well, it says adding peak over south door.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, That's.
But that's what they're wanting now. They didn't have that. Okay,
Right,
all right, because they were just siding it.
they were deciding.
Roofing it with it, or-
Yeah, they just
But
decided.
you don't need a permit to sign a house,
No.
No.
because you're not changing the
Not in our
structure
town,
or
but
anything.
Every other town you do.
No. Anytime you're just replacing existing, you don't need a permit.
See, this goes right back to what we had this discussion this last meeting, you know, that's a good example. They were citing. And they think, you know, it'd be really nice to put this little tiny peak out here. Let's just do that quick.
That's
because
where you-
Everybody's here,
The thing is, they were there for 2 weeks. They could have buzzed down here. And, you know.
but we still wouldn't have approved it. Till, we wouldn't have seen it till tonight. And we wouldn't have approved it for the same reason, because they wouldn't have had, they would have had incomplete information.
But if they had submitted complete information, that we would have approved. it.
Exactly, but they wouldn't have known that till tonight. See, so I'm just saying that that's the kind of example that.
That happens.
This whole permitting business is just a little bit,
One time we had a planning commission
Yeah.
and if the street guy usually did looked at stuff
yep,
and also it was okayed by that person. And it was accepted.
and it worked.
Yeah.
And it worked. See, we don't have that person now,
No, I know.
you know,
And we don't have a planning commission anymore.
right? But we don't have the person to even look. We
Right.
have no zoning person to look, so.
That's why I said the last meeting, I said, all this does is trigger the county to assess you more taxes.
And that's all they've ever done.
Because we're not,
Yeah.
we haven't adopted the building code, so they're not following the building code and.
But we can't just go away with permits.
So how do you
No,
wanna?
I know we.
So you look around town and stuff,
We can't.
stuff that was done before permits are around. I fought with it, with my neighbor. I finally bought the place and
Yeah, we know.
put it down.
Well, you know, that example you had up there at that peak. I'd much rather overlook that than the problem down here on Holiday Street.
Oh, for
Well,
sure.
I
So,
know. But how do we do that?
It's fine. I like what they've done, but he just sent us a letter talking about the permitting process that we're approving stuff that's completely wrong. And we have to stop. We have to draw a line in the sand and say, we need a site drawing. We need the roads, we need setbacks, we need.
Because when you
We're not asking
extend
for
out,
Detailed engineering. We're just asking for
Yeah.
a decent sketch.
and when you extend out your
Showing us.
house, the other properties on that same block take precedent, or set the precedent as to how far you can go out. Right? You can't go out further than the furthest point of the house. On the rest of the road, and there's things that need to be looked at. And they probably didn't know it. You know? And like Jim said, it looks nice.
so we aren't gonna approve any of these tonight and they have to be notified to write down or draw pictures or sketches or whatever they're gonna do then.
They need to
Yeah.
submit a site drawing. I mean, you guys can approve. 'em. I'm gonna vote no on all of them. You know, or the incomplete one,
Yeah.
which is. And we got one.
Gonna come back and bite us.
We can't receive them. They have to be received 72 hours before a meeting too. You know, we can't receive action items the night of a council meeting.
Does it still have a picture on it?
Well, I think that's
Oh,
what
my
Tom has
God.
gotten
I haven't
said
had
over the
it yet.
years is if we followed the state code, a lot of this couldn't be done. But since it's small town Good Thunder, and we know, just like that peak on that house looks very attractive.
It just says.
Yep,
You know.
it looks great.
Yep.
But it says right on the back, it says required documents, date. And north arrow, all property lines and lot dimensions, location dimensions and setback, existing buildings and structures.
But it doesn't say picture.
It doesn't
Some
say
people-
picture. And we got a picture when we didn't get the other stuff.
Correct.
Can confirm.
That's changed over the years. Some
Yeah,
people need that it says picture, not
What
all
did
of
you
that.
say? It says north? Remember that.
Kennedy's letter says it has to include north.
yeah,
Yep. And Vicky's permit did that day.
But and.
it did, but it looked like that was the house, Robert.
Doesn't have any other dimensions or any other thing.
It had a box with some steps. And I thought that was the house and the steps, not the platform and the steps.
But we shouldn't approve it because it wasn't.
And if we would have had all the setbacks and the good drawing of the house and whatever, there would have been no question and it would have been no problem. You know, that's where we're just trying to not have those problems again.
According to the letter of the rules, none of these meet the application requirements to be passed. So we can't pass.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion then to not pass them?
Any of them?
Well, there's some, I suppose, on the end there that are all typed out and have drawings. That would be GT 22, right? Or no,
13 is a
13.
Renewal.
2213 or 1322, I guess.
No, that's a continuation, but we don't have a process for it.
So what do you want to do with that one?
What did Dennis do when he renewed?
He renewed and
Did he pay another fee or just
he,
renewed?
he gave us the fee with his water bill payment, and he said, if you guys don't want to charge me the fee, then just put it on my water bill. And we said we weren't gonna charge him the fee, so we didn't charge him the fee.
Yeah, I feel like if you pay the fee once, you know, like if you were doing your structure for the gas station and you paid your main fee once, I wouldn't want you to have to pay it
Thing
again.
is, in big cities,
You know?
we have to pay another fee. when we renew a permit.
Mm.
I don't know if it's $20, it's $20, but
Make money.
because there is paperwork,
True.
time and labor, you
A
know.
lot of times isn't there?
How do you lay out moving dirt? Changing the property, the landscape or what?
Well, you have to say you're changing elevations and stuff, but that doesn't even have an address on it. And then Willard Street isn't an address. Put the property address on it. Draw a map of, you know,
Well, it's in the 400 block, but it's supposed to be in the 500 block. Because your building is 500, or should be 500, because the block on that side of Front Street.
well, the
It's the
council adopted
400.
the address for it. So, I
Hmm?
mean,
Which one?
I didn't
I don't
make
know.
an address for it. But it does have an address for the property that
Steve.
needs being worked on, you know. But again, that drawing's not complete either. I'm just saying, if we're gonna start, we don't wanna have any trouble, we better start doing this correctly or not doing it at all.
Well, I'm for not doing it all.
We know this, Tom.
I knew that was gonna come.
I can't imagine some of the structures we'd have erected in
Reason,
there.
why do people want to move out of North Mankato? They want to go through this crap.
We don't
But we
have
have to have
to get
some
a permit for a
rules.
toilet and a sink and a, you know.
The part that bites me the most is that we want, people are improving their properties and we got existing properties and they can't
I
even pick
know.
up the trash. You know?
Yeah.
So are we gonna improve any or approve any of these tonight?
That's the same as, yes.
Sir, do you mind to make a motion to approve some, not others?
DT 18 does not need one. That's your concrete repair. You do not need one.
Okay,
So
and
we
I
can-
have to draw a picture of my building and my steps and how far I am off the property lines and everything.
Just draw a square, step in a few measurements. Put an N on it.
Well, there's an
Don't forget the N.
existing temporary step there right now.
I see it.
Does that?
Are you replacing existing? Is it gonna be the same?
It'd be probably like 1 feet wide, longer to accommodate moving in and out. So
It'll be bigger than.
a little bigger, yeah, probably 1 foot one way and 1 foot the other, so there's plenty of platform to move in, couch, whatever, bigger items. So,
See, what's disappointing about all of this is that everything here is an improvement in Good Thunder.
You want to improve.
It's just that it's not done by the paperwork perfectly. You know, that's what's,
Well,
The thing is, if
it's
we-
not even not
if
paid
we start with
perfectly.
8 permits that aren't correct, then everyone can just do it without anything. And then Chris's letter to us basically says that you guys have got to start doing this correctly.
how come they don't say that about these nuisance properties?
They say-
Why isn't that an item, bigger item than making your property look better?
I don't
how
know.
about this, just as a compromise, would it work that we could say, we will pass your permit if you send us this drawing?
Well, yeah,
Absolutely.
This stuff here is already half done, or whatever. It's not gonna
Yeah.
change the drawing. We just need.
that's essentially what we're saying.
When they turn them into her, she could verify that all of the stuff is there. When she gets a permit and there's no picture, she can hand it back. Hey, we need a picture, just a simple box with where the step's gonna go, where the deck's gonna go, the garage is gonna go. Cause they could all stop there. Cause what she's doing now is taking them and waiting for you guys. So if she can get the documents and basically all that's missing is a picture, she can say, hey, we need a picture of where the garage is gonna go. Simple rectangle where it's gonna go. That would eliminate all of this that you guys are doing right now, is getting all the documents, and then when she's got check mark A, B, C, D, and F, she can go, here you go, guys. And then it's all there. Cause now we gotta wait again to go back to the people, and then they're waiting to do what they asked. So that's irritating the resident.
Well, some of this, well, mine
Suggestion.
includes cement work. So now would I have to wait another 30 days to build my steps?
See, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
For
that's
these
exactly-
here, for these here, that are right here. Can we say, can we pass them with the understanding that everybody provides the documentation required?
Yes, absolutely.
Why don't you start with a new program?
And then the new program, exactly, it would be that, just what you suggested, from this day forward. Anybody comes in looking for a permit or turns one in, I mean, you know, when they bring it back, whatever, filled out.
Cause she's got 4 days a week that she can get these documents, and you guys have 1 day a month.
Right,
for these
Sometimes two.
documents. Well, yeah, I
And
guess.
sometimes we get them the night off,
Yeah.
so that doesn't help either.
Well, and
And we really shouldn't approve anything that comes here the night
But
off.
if she's got the picture and everything there, then you can discuss it right away.
Yep.
For right now we're turning around and going backwards, and it's just a lot of.
that way there, when we have somebody on board that would be our zoning administrator. That person then also would be able to take a completed application, look at it and go,
Right.
you know,
And I highly suggest rewording it so it says picture,
yeah,
because looking at that, I wouldn't know either,
yeah.
because it's the way it's worded.
did
weird.
you said they used to say?
They used to say, because when we did our fence, I remember drawing a picture. When we did our deck, I remember drawing a picture. Well, Corey did, not a good drawer, but he did. I remember
Yeah.
that.
I remember it too.
I remember the garage too. That was a long time ago. They required a picture for all of that.
A drawing,
A
right?
drawing.
Yeah,
Drawing.
Yep.
or a picture, but yeah.
When I'm looking-
4x56 or whatever.
You know, the pole shed put up, like, we know how big it is, but we don't know where on the property it's going.
Well,
That's what I'm saying.
if we would have had a city van, who would have been walked down there on site prior to this,
Right.
would have helped a lot. Right?
And it's not that person's fault that we don't. So,
Why don't you, okay, the permit with stipulation that you specify your setbacks, specify your easement
Before you start. your
before
project.
you start.
Yep.
Yep.
Here's your permit, I want this.
who needs to see it to make sure it's okay, though?
Jim.
Jim does? It's all on you.
Well, I mean, I think he's the most learned person. I mean, I think that Ashley needs to collect the information and Jim can just take one look at it and just go, yep, that is gonna be okay, you know?
Mhm.
It's kind of like Ron and Robert, you know, with the C maintenance man. I mean, yep, that's fine, you know?
Well, and when they're building so close to Jason's property, they really should find those pins, because they're saying, hey, we're 5 feet off the property line.
Yeah.
Well, is it 3 feet? Is it 6 feet? You should really mark that property line out.
Well, I can tell you that the property right behind Ashney there, that field that gets sold. There is about a 10-foot or 12-foot discrepancy. You see that little white dot there?
Which one?
Oh,
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know which one we're talking about.
I don't have my glasses on.
This one, right, point.
yep, that little white dot. This property here this was originally owned by your aunt. I think one of the first ones, but anyway, this is about 10, 12 feet over the line, all the way down. According to the survey.
Right.
So, like you just said, we don't know where them pins are. Maybe it would be
Yeah.
good for everybody to find out where their lot lines are down there. Especially with the structure of,
Anything on this corner of town is wrong.
off. Yep.
Has been forever.
If it gets sold ever and they pin it out and now there was no variance and it's too far over, they could make them tear it down.
Well, chances are there's trees in that shed that are sitting on what's supposed to go with that field.
Like, I remember my uncle's house, his whole kitchen. I think it was 12 feet into his house was the property or the line across from the school.
Well, you went down and viewed that one on
Yeah, Doyle, he'd keep moving the nuts over.
where? Where are you looking at?
It's right
Right
behind.
there.
Come home and it's that much over.
Garage.
I back.
So anyway,
I planted trees, he tore the branches off.
This shed.
Yeah, here you go.
And I'm too bad he died. I mean, that's.
Right here.
How do you know the last one?
Property here and here.
Actually, their responsibility.
See that, his Jason's garage is on the property line. He's what, 6 feet over? Now, the other one they're building,
Schultz.
Schultz. I'm not supposed to say that,
Yeah,
but
Park
anyway,
Street. We're on Park Street.
they're building about 6 feet away from his garage. Well, that might be 12 feet off the property line, but they think it's the established mow line is the property line. It's not.
No,
And then off the back, do they know where that pin is? I think they know where that back pin is, but I think it's off.
You mean the southeast corner pin? If they could find that pin and go 140.5 feet, that would tell them where their property line is.
Yeah, I think the only one they know is the northwest pin up there.
Okay,
How
where
about
the
that?
jog is?
Yeah, I think they know where that pin is.
Yeah,
And that Park Street, Jason was saying that's
Sorry, guys.
66 feet wide.
yeah, that's,
And he goes, I'd like to build my garage out. And I said, well, that's another discussion, just to.
Cause it'll never go down the hill, right?
and it'll never, should never ever been that wide because Holiday Street is, I don't even think it's the 50.
Right.
Doesn't say on there.
Well,
But the reason for the conversation is exactly that. And then down there, if you don't know where the property lines and you build something and it's not in the right spot, then what?
Well, that's already happened then with Schultz's shed, pretty much.
And maybe they had, maybe that's wrong. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it depends upon what severity you get to. I know that for a fact. When I bought my lot up there. And I had it all surveyed and all that, well then Arnold bought the 2 lots next to me. My lot kind of turned, but I gained feet on the south side.
Yeah.
Cause we had 2 different surveyors.
Yep.
I gained about 10 feet.
on different pins.
So
can we pass what we know would be okay with the understanding that they have to give that information? And then we'll hold up on the pole shed then?
Yeah, and I think they're ready to build right now. They brought the rock in, they're ready to drill, but I think they should really verify their property lines before they stick a structure. In. They've got a lot of room to move east
That's a big.
if they need to, but they've got a rock where they think they're gonna build. And
I mean, wow, that's a bigger problem than that peak on the house.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
it
It
is,
is.
it is, but I'm
Understand, yeah.
and he sends us a letter, we need to start doing things a letter law, and if we don't, then we can't enforce any of it,
He's just trying to help us not get in trouble in the future,
Right, right. Yeah, we don't have to follow his advice. I mean, shoot, he never gets sued on it or anything.
But yeah, we can pass these contingent upon receiving proper site drawing.
I mean, that's
And then-
what you're needing.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then the pole shed, they really need to, whether they spend some money on ISJ or whoever, Bolton Bank surveying, they need to get that figured out where their property is.
I guess you should maybe go up there and tell them that, you're here to iron it out. Tell them they need to find their lot pins before they can start. Because
or at least.
it could be the same thing as what I just pointed out.
Right. And Schultz doesn't care, but when that property sells, the next guy might say, hey, your building's on my property.
But so far, it looks like Schultz's is on
Right.
his property.
Yeah.
If
It
that one's
does.
right, yeah.
So I
But that
guess,
isn't our problem.
are
And-
you okay with his phone numbers on there? Are you okay with calling and reaching out to him?
Yeah, I can reach out to him tomorrow or whatever.
And I think that we as council then officially should give Jim the authority to investigate this one. Go up there and actually talk to him and make sure everything's okay, because you're not the zoning administrator.
Right.
Yep.
But
We're just trying to help them
Tell them something.
be proactive so they don't end up in trouble later.
Yeah. You know all that building.
Everybody agree with that?
somebody, you want to make that motion for him along with Jim being
So move.
I'll second it.
all in favor? Aye, opposed, motion carried.
Abstain.
You didn't get out of that
Get
one.
anything out of this?
No, I
Yeah.
know, but you
So
Right.
then what should you guys want me to?
reach out to everyone else and say they need a plot drawing or,
reach out to them.
A picture,
Not even a picture, they can be.
Yeah.
like a diagram or like a little drawing.
With the understanding that you get this back. If you do not, your permit is not approved.
Yeah, they need the streets, they need the sidewalk, they need the
I'm just gonna
setbacks,
see if I just-
kind of drawn on a picture. It doesn't have to be to scale.
No.
Right.
Just a freehand drawing.
All right, we can move on to legal
Sorry about
advice.
that, you guys.
Small city loan
Agree.
development, if any update?
You have a letter, don't discuss it. It comes back to me after this meeting. It does not leave this office.
Mine's right there.
Your pen.
You have this,
Maybe read it again, because now my brain hurts. I don't remember.
yeah.
This one.
Yeah, that one.
Supposed to read that shit when you get in here. You get here early, you can do that.
I don't fit early. I don't want to be accused of having a meeting before the meeting.
True,
Hell, yeah.
preparing yourself. Excuse me.
We should have music, Jeopardy music.
Mhm.
Jeopardy music.
Okay. We can't discuss.
No.
When can we discuss it?
We kind of already just.
Never.
Discussed the action.
Yeah, this is saying that,
So he's taking,
let's go.
so he's.
Well, you kind of already said what we were doing, or Robert kind of already said what we were doing,
Right.
okay?
What
We
we
just
talked
can't-
about is, can't even pursue that. Moving forward.
Just so you know, what he's saying, just so you know. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
If we want to have something good happen from this, we just got to be careful.
So we should just go ahead as planned?
Yes.
Yep.
And we agreed to,
As planned.
we agreed to start at A. And maybe stop at B or maybe.
Right.
From our one meeting that we had.
Right.
Yeah.
Here. I never want to see that again.
I'm gonna save it and put it in the file for you. Happy Christmas party.
It's for you.
Where you're at? Mine starts.
You go home. What time you going on the road?
Oh, yeah.
Glide.
All right,
Yeah.
so no update.
2:30
at
in
all.
the afternoon or 2:30 in the morning?
Correct.
Good morning.
You ain't going to bed, are you?
We usually try.
I
Robert,
got head to the
No.
still water. We got
no payments have been made.
unions,
That's the.
tired guys, we're taking a cruise on.
Payments have came in.
Oh, is that right? Yep, good for you. Yeah,
All right,
good for you. Got like
move on to
applicants for it. They had to get another boat.
unfinished business. First thing is the house at 530 Sherman. And we have this letter in here. What are we supposed to do about this?
I think that's for our information and then maybe pass that on to our police department.
I let Nicole know about that one.
Okay.
She said there's deputies have spoke to them.
Oh.
But she will go and speak to them again and just wants to know what you guys want to do.
Okay. I mean, with that situation, that's a little different than just, the noise part of it, so.
Yeah, I think.
And we
that's
have a
safety.
leash law, but I mean, like I say, I don't want just. Was there a
Yeah, maybe we
leash
could
law?
just publicly say
Well,
in
they-
general,
They said though, they don't want another meaningless letter sent to them because
Yeah.
it's obviously, we've sent them letters and nothing's happened.
but let's just say in general, we have a leash law in town for a reason. And if you can't take your dog out on a leash, then you need to fence in your backyard or front yard or side yard or whatever and let them out there. Do people's dogs get out by accident? Absolutely. And we want to get them
I
back.
say, that's.
But
what
know.
a Deputy should be doing.
Yeah.
Yep, thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Have a good night.
So do we have to even act on this when it's not signed?
That's hard. It is hard,
Where'd it come
but
from?
I get that they're upset.
I don't know either. It's postmarked, like it went through the
It went
whole
through
the
Minneapolis.
whole mail, through the mail.
Everything goes through
Dropbox.
I mean, this could just be vendetta stuff.
It could.
How do you know where it really actually came from? I don't know.
Well, I think we do know though that their dogs do roam.
A
Yeah.
lot of dogs, yes. I
Yes,
agree.
tell me about
If you
it.
see mine, you better call me because I'm dead or trapped under something heavy.
And
That girl
this
doesn't
is-
get out.
Unfortunately, I think that we should probably, because this is an unsigned thing, it's kind of like the petition thing, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
just,
right.
it's there,
Yeah.
but it's not something that we can really act on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's information only. It's like getting a phone call, you know, kind of a thing.
I would advise,
So you get, I mean, I've gotten
Would you
called
give
and don't
them
mean
a
shit
copy of this?
when you look into it, you know.
I don't know.
I would. I would just say, wouldn't you give this copy to the climbers and say, we got this, letting you know there's somebody that is concerned about your dogs. Who that person is, we don't know. But it could be concerning to you if that dog would bite somebody,
Yeah,
not being on
Yeah.
a leash. You know, the
that's a
easiest,
very nice way to put it.
the easiest way to remedy it is like she said, build a fence in your backyard.
yeah,
Dogs can run out the door and run around and satisfy themselves, but yet not harming anybody walking down the street.
I mean, and we're not saying, I don't think there's ever been any problem with them hurting anybody, you know.
I don't think there has been either,
But-
but they're big dogs and they're.
Might instill some fear, yeah.
Yep.
And the fact of the matter is that there is a leash law in town
Mhm.
and, you know, you're supposed to try.
I mean, let's be honest, I don't even walk my own dog in this town.
Yeah.
Because there's so many dogs that come after us when we walk. And it sucks. And I've heard that from a lot of people, but I guess, you know, I would
Get a
advise,
Bigger dog.
no, I like my dog. I would advise people, if this is happening on a regular basis, I know they won't deal with barking dogs. But I think they'll, you know, eventually deal with a habitual dog at large, you know, or maybe a dog causing problems. I don't know.
Didn't that trigger, there was a dog at large, it triggered somebody to shoot the dog in town a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Caused a bigger thing, so.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
maybe,
don't do that.
maybe before that happens.
That one was
Yeah.
coming over and doing his job on that person's property and told him, but again,
You never,
nobody reacted to it until they shot the dog. Then boy, they reacted to it.
yeah, that's
So,
awful.
all right, unfinished business, house, 530 Sherman.
Any bites?
Nothing.
Okay,
How are we advertising that again?
It's on the website, it's on Craigslist, it was in the messenger, it's posted up here. I guess I could post it up at the picture thing too in the post office.
will they let us
Put
do
it
that?
Down as
I don't know.
$1.
I think we can do anything we want.
Well, we
give it
can't
away.
give it away, I bet,
Well, probably
but we
not.
can give it away for $1.
We have it as an offer, we don't have it set dollar amount on it. We said make an offer. No offers have came in, not even for $1.
Yeah, it's in tough shape.
I mean, you took some,
not
there's some nice
possible.
pictures of it, but
I'd move into it tomorrow.
You could rent it out tomorrow.
You could.
maybe not per our rental
You'd have to
ordinance,
update it.
but
Yeah, it's fixed two broken windows and paint it, yeah.
Well, I guess I take that
You'd
back.
have to bring it up to code and make,
The city couldn't, if somebody else
yeah.
bought it from the city, yeah.
Well, no, they couldn't either because it would still have to meet.
we still had some repairs that we needed to do.
Judd would still have to inspect
That's
it.
fair,
Everything
yep.
would have to be brought up to code, you know, so
I don't know, are we in a hurry?
not really.
I say we just wait on it a while longer.
Well, we want people to clean up property. City owns that one. It looks pretty much disarray to me. Just sitting there for a whole year now. 2 years. 2 years,
It's been sitting quite a while.
2 years. It's been there for 2 years. Nothing's
Goes through
happened.
another winter, it will be junk,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, we're keeping the
Tear it down.
heat is up, right? Or the heat that's controlled in there?
I don't know.
Take as long to tear it
Well,
Well,
down.
we were before.
Our insurance said we were supposed to have
Soil some
in there.
That was
I think when the last city guy was here, I think he was.
That
there,
costs
I
to
don't
get
know,
that
some Checklist,
I think it was he, there again,
so I would hope he
a tax
was.
rebate on that too, because we donated to the fire department.
Oh, that's
When he
It
was
was
through
burning, yeah.
You know, but it, to tear it down, it was, I think it was like 13,000,
I was gonna say, that's gonna be like
you know,
15.
but that's a lot of years ago,
Yeah.
you know. No. And then it was less than
Not a
that,
Big house.
paid cash. We took
So
off 50.
further discussion with the house or? Is it supposed to be heated with my furnace? Just saying,
With your furnace?
that's my furnace.
How did your
I've never-
furnace?
That's right. You put that in there.
Ever lived in there, and needed a furnace and
Yeah.
who owned it, did not want to put
Oh.
a furnace in, so Robert put a $2,700. And it's still Robert's furnace.
That sounds like a you problem.
I quit.
I don't know why you would do that.
Do you have a lien on that property?
I'm gonna tie it up again for another
You
year.
have to have the free lien to get a lien, you know?
The driver quit him too after a couple months and still live there.
So, any further discussion on 5:30?
Table it for another day.
Actually, I would just assume that we vote to knock it down tonight, but I suppose that's not gonna fly, so
No.
I think it should be knocked down. I think it's just a detriment.
Well, like I said, 2 years. We've acted and done nothing.
The only thing is, speaking of thinking about it, what you're saying here, you had a conversation with the county administrator, right? About a county shop,
Yeah.
you know, they're still thinking about Good Thunder. And if that happened, we would have to knock it down in a hurry
Because we'd have to
need
build
that
our well.
in that spot. So that's kind of contingency there.
We would have to
Does it-
build what on there?
Put a well on there, like it was intended to be just from.
Well,
the
that
start.
wouldn't be a hurry process. We're not putting a
Well,
well
it
up
would- it would
anytime
be-
soon.
If they decided they wanted to build a new shop just outside of Good Thunder,
Yeah.
and they can,
Yeah, and that would be
You know,
great.
they need a lot of water, more than we can supply, and then that would be one of the things is they would want.
Oh, okay. I wasn't
Yeah.
following you.
In order to make this happen, you know, we would have to be in a position that we could say, yep, we can make that go. We got the money, we could.
I
do
didn't know that was
you know.
a,
They might drill a well closer to their site though, too, right?
I doubt
I
it.
don't know.
I doubt it. I doubt that.
I don't know how much water they need. They talked about a lot of water though.
Well, what do they need a lot of water for?
They wash their stuff.
Wash
all
the trucks
time.
and machinery.
You gotta wonder, do you have to make like a buffer to take that salty water? Cause you're gonna just drop that all in our retention ponds? That's gonna be problematic, isn't it?
Well, they would probably have to have. a
Well, they're gonna have
treatment
to-
device,
they're gonna have to
which
have
would
their
be
own.
Included in Mankato also,
Yeah.
you know, out there in the country where they were planning on originally. They would have to have a pre-treatment facility.
Cause there's lift stations all the way out to where they were gonna build,
Yeah.
so they would have to pre-treat before they drop it in the
Yep.
retention.
Yeah, I'm sure that's all figured into their planning. So I sure don't want to be caught with our pants down over an old wreck house and not be able to accommodate them if that were to come to fruition. They really haven't got anywhere to go, you know, I mean.
Cause I talked to Bob Meyer, cause he reached out to Ashley, so I called him, you know. We are the center of the hub or center of the county.
Yeah,
They want to build a new shop in Good Thunder and I says, man, you can like build one shop. Save this one and have extra storage. Utilize what you got, move your equipment out to the new one, you know,
yeah.
instead of building two, you could just build one.
Mhm.
So will the county ever take us up on that? We don't know. But like Tom says, if we had the intent and had another well drilled and ready to go, we can say, we can give you adequate water. We already just instructed Jeff Domrus to move forward on well, our INI and or expanding our treatment plants.
I would like to find out that they are, I mean, it's gonna take some time for them to get here. I would like to find out that they're doing that before we
Oh, I agree.
drill a well
Well,
or tear a property down.
we should have another well besides the one that's what, 85, 90 years old, the original well.
Oh, and I agree with that too, but I see what you're saying too, Sarah. I mean, you know, we don't have to jump into this immediately, but at the same time, we need to be cognizant that an opportunity for something like this could come along and we don't want to be.
Well, then I think at which point, if they were to contact one of us, or, you know, Robert or Ashley and you talk to him or whatever, we would have an emergency meeting, like our meeting as soon as possible to discuss how to prepare for it. We don't know how much water they want to use. We don't know how they're gonna, like you said, you know, hold it, treat it, whatever they're gonna do. So there's some things we need to find out first before we do that.
So what do we say now when somebody comes in and says that? like the house up here on Main Street that looks like crap. If we send him a letter saying that his house looks like crap, you gotta put some siding on it, gotta do something with it. What are we gonna say when he says, well, look at that one, there the city owns.
Yeah.
I guess I haven't been by it recently. I don't think
I'll
it
say,
looked
don't
that
worry,
bad.
I sent the city a letter too.
I mean, really,
Across the board.
there comes a time when
You
you.
got a letter for weeds for that property once, right?
Oh, yeah, no, it's been there a long time. I mean, it
You
just,
just have to kind of bite the bullet and go, hey.
I talked to Clamor about Vernon and he said there's so many rules now. He'd have to go in there and look at everything that no asbestos, no,
Oh, I suppose.
Yep.
Because it's older and you can't have that in.
it's the roof's got asbestos all over
Yeah, the
it, siding and all that shit.
Has asbestos in it.
Yeah.
So,
So if the city would fix that up, would the city have to abate all that asbestos?
Yep.
Or you would move anybody in there?
Yep.
No,
There's some work up.
The plaster, it's all about encapsulation.
That's what Stuart Carlton has already told me. You gotta take the plaster out of there if you're gonna rent that.
I've never heard that.
Yep.
I just thought you can't make it, if it's,
Plaster. In the
Airborne.
50s, they put asbestos in some plaster.
Oh, really?
They
yeah.
used horsehair before that because.
Mine was horsehair.
It was like rebar for plaster.
Unless you're gonna spend all the money and check every room and wall and make sure that this one's not been replaced. And have it all tested individually, which case it's just like having it debated.
I think we're talking
Same
about
call.
dreams here. Let's talk about tearing it down then.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, that'd be cheaper than trying to do anything
And
with
all
it.
and all that's just a pipe dream, aside from the fact that.
Yeah.
We keep saying this, and I still say this, that. The largest taxpayer in town would really not like to have anybody live there. That was really the intent. That's why they bought the building.
That's exactly right.
So,
Wasn't made aware of that till after the fact, so I didn't, I don't know, our citizens.
Well, that doesn't matter, but we still should honor their wishes.
I'm confused about that and I don't care either way, honestly, but if they feel that way, they don't want anybody in that house. What's different than the house across the street? Or your apartments or the house down the road or up the block that's covered in the red things? What's the difference
the
then?
difference is they owned that house at one time.
Yeah,
They own that property. That's what the difference is.
so,
they would-
but even in our closing papers, they didn't say no one can live there, so how is it? How is it any different, I guess, than Robert putting renters in the same exact spot? Or the people across the street? Or say. Somebody bought that house and literally moved it to the property across the street, how does that change? I
You
guess.
should invite him and ask him that question.
Yeah, I was just curious, I don't,
It's not, I mean, I get it, what you're saying.
Somebody did ask me if they could buy it and move it across to the property. I said, no.
Why not?
Well,
It's a great house.
It's industrial, first of all. And
Well,
second of all, we want to build a bigger shop, so we need space.
Tom says we can do anything, so we can rezone that.
Yeah.
Gotta have a variance hearing to
That's the whole
rezone
hearing,
thing.
all these Neighbors and everything.
I just heard somebody say that
you
they're
guys don't want to talk about that part right now.
doing, I thought of that one, but it's such a piece of crap. I don't wanna suggest it to him.
That house is not that bad.
I really think you guys should go walk through it one time.
Yeah.
I walked through it. I didn't
I
think it was
have.
that bad.
Lately,
10 years ago,
Great.
and it needed it.
my house was horrible, it should have been torn down, now it's amazing, it's just, you gotta have some sort
Look
of,
at my house. Ours was a
It doesn't
chicken
matter.
coop.
anyways.
Anyway, I say, I don't want to act on this tonight.
Let's move on.
Make a motion to table it then, sir.
I'll make a motion to table it.
Somebody
Second.
second that?
He seconded.
Ron second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Hi.
And opposed, motion carried. Okay, school, 311 Willard.
I talked to Mark Manderfield at the county and for that number that we said on the school, we put that when we met with Mike, we put that 1.2, what it would generate.
Yep.
If it's classified as commercial use, the estimated tax would be 59,100 using the 2022 tax rate. And if it was classified as apartments, the tax estimate would be 33,520 for the 2022 tax rate.
So it'll probably be a mixture scoop if he has commercial and residential mixture scoop. It'll be around 40 grand a year,
Interesting.
which the school district will get probably about a third of that in perpetuity.
A third of the 33.
33 to 40. Yeah.
So that's with Was it 14 or 16 apartments?
We figured, we just used 12 at
Or 12.
or a number,
Yep.
and there will be 16 to 20 in there when we actually counted the plan out.
He kind of thought he'd value them apartments at $80,000.
Right.
That isn't,
They did it on the evaluation of 1.2 million for the building.
I think we did.
So that
If
was,
that came at 1.2 million, I bet you Mike would fight that. He would contest that.
Those are the numbers Mike gave us. Mike goes 80,000 per 2-bedroom door, and there's gonna be some singles in there and some triples in there. That was Mike's number. It's interesting because he told us how the formula works. And what he valued it in his head in this room in 3 minutes is exactly what the county did. You know, within $3,000.
he was very sharp on his numbers, you know, and there's one thing we forgot. That it does pay back to the school district.
Mhm.
It does have an opportunity to have more pupils. You know, so there's a few things there that he brought enlightened us with that could make that look more appealing.
So who develops the offer now? Which of you people are gonna develop this offer and present it to the school board?
He kind of wanted us to go for the dollar.
Yep.
And point out to them
Yep.
that this is what this potentially could do, because I asked him. If it was tore down and we ended up with 6 lots. Would we be able to sell them in the next, what did I say, 2 years or 5 years?
3, 5, you know.
And generate the money. That this could possibly start generating next summer. Now with the interest going up. We could sit on them lots for what?
he said it could be up,
They'll go
he
down.
said it could be up to 20 years
20
before you
years.
see anything.
They're
with it.
switching all their gears from resident, single family residential to rentals. So they're going back to their 4-plexes and 8-plexes because of the interest rates in the economy. He talked about how he lost his borrowing power on the land because of interest rates and all these things. It's very interesting to listen to someone that's that smart.
But he said he would work with us to put together the
The proposal.
The performa, yeah.
Proposal.
Yeah.
And
He
all that
wants
stuff.
the city and our city attorney to draft a letter to the school board at the original kind of talking points, closing costs. And then closing, he would buy it back to the city. We would never own it for more than a few minutes on paper.
Right, no, right, I get
And
that.
he's not afraid of the tax burden. His Brown Printing is $400,000 per year in taxes. So it's, you know, the renters pay his taxes, you know, basically.
Sure, oh, sure.
So he's still excited about the opportunity.
But my question is, how do we proceed now? We just can't call the school board and say, we don't have another meeting.
No, we would have Kennedy draft a letter with this offer and our business plan, because they kind of wanted to see that. Which would be working with the developer, to develop it into residential, and then mention the tax in perpetuity, because we never thought about that at all, that they would get, let's just say $10,000 a year for forever.
Right.
You know, and actually that would grow as the value of the
The value of the
Right.
property went up and taxes go up.
which is a better deal for them, because say they wanted 100 grand, that's only 10 years of taxes. Now they're going to continue and continue and continue to receive that.
Well, they're gonna get the tax off that regardless of who owns it.
Yeah. Well, depending, because if it says an empty lot, the school
Oh,
owns it for
right,
20 years,
yeah.
they'll get nothing.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And then they'll spend the demolition money. Here they can use it. I guess that athletic complex is going up, so I don't know if that demolition money is gonna go into there. We were always told to go back on principle.
Right.
And putting, say, 4, 6, 8 kids into that district and that money that comes from the state. You know, the service is already here as far as busing. So, you know, our population would also grow. Which would be good for everybody.
Okay, so
Plus,
who's
so-
gonna provide the information then to Kennedy?
We
To
can
develop
provide what
this
this
letter.
county gave us. And Mike could probably work with Kenny a little bit to fine tune that letter. But I think our offers, what we kind of always thought we could get it was for that dollar plus closing costs. And then we just close with Mike and let him develop it. Because we're gonna receive the benefit of taxes, school district will receive their benefit, and he's gonna put people in the community.
I guess I'm still concerned, who's going to provide the information to Kennedy that he can make the letter to send to the school board to see if they're even interested.
Well, I guess he could talk to Mike, get some of them same facts that we got from him. Did you take notes that day?
Mhm.
So Ashley has some notes, Jim's input, maybe the four of them could generate that letter to the school board.
We know we don't wanna own it. We'll own it for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I get that.
But I think that building stays up. It becomes a viable part of the community.
I just,
He'll start remodeling this winter. He said he's gonna put all his guys to work. He's not laying anyone off.
I just don't wanna have this drag another month and then another month.
Right.
Let's, if we're in agreement to do this, let's make it done, you know,
Right.
let's because they might just say, huh, no way, man. And they might have other ideas they're not telling us, you know,
Yeah.
so let's get
Well,
it going.
they might counter back, but I think, his.
Yeah.
Yeah, his offer is like he said, he'll put 20 grand up, but he's not gonna put 100 grand up.
Right.
He's gonna pay them in perpetuity. That's where the whole tax conversation came out, where they're gonna make money in perpetuity by letting it be developed.
By that being developed as rentals, benefits everybody.
Yeah.
It benefits the city of Good Thunder. It benefits
Yeah.
the Maple River City or Maple River School District.
The only people it doesn't really benefit are the exact neighbors around because of renters, you know.
Yeah.
And that kind of, it's the same complaint we get for the two rental, the big rentals up here, you know.
It's not gonna be low income, it'll be affordable, but it's not gonna be cheap because they'll be brand new units and.
No, I don't mean to infer it's going to be section 8 or anything. I just mean, anytime you have a group of rental properties in one spot, like an apartment building or anything like that, you have a problem, you know.
He talked about that too. They've got people on their team that vet people and they're very diligent about removing other records and they've got project superintendents of victory. Capture up and they've done this a lot.
Yeah, they have. I mean,
He's kind of just a plethora of information.
He's a smart cookie.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion that we pursue this in this method. When we get an answer.
Chris's letter could share with us and then we could. Excuse me. So yeah, it sounds great. I mean, but if it's this offer with Mike's input, I think that's where we're going. And it's in the school board's hands. If they say no, then
That's my point.
Yeah.
that's it.
That's exactly right.
Their decision.
Nothing we can do about it. Or we can do something different,
Right,
as we were discussing before.
right.
Yep.
But start down here.
That's a great idea.
So you made that motion? Someone to second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed?
What'd you say?
All right.
Opposed, Ron?
Huh?
Did you say opposed?
You know, he says.
No, I said, what'd you say?
He says, been talking.
All right.
City maintenance job, I guess we covered that earlier, right?
Right,
Yeah.
So just
just waiting for his response,
wait
right?
for him and then, message you guys. How you want to be contacted by or?
By
You're leaving, but.
Your message
Text
thing?
line.
So under unfinished business, did the city bill the people involved last summer for their walks, their driveways and everything?
Mariano sent bills out.
Yep.
Unless you're referring about mine, I paid mine.
I paid my concrete to the city before he sent his bills out.
Okay, so that's what we need to know. So some of these like have the concrete paid. And some have labor and concrete. So out of the 4, 1 is paid to concrete?
I don't know whose you have,
Well,
so
the 4 that were involved in the renewal, the one rental house. His daughter, Jim and Barb. Were the 4.
what is the extra, the pet, okay, yes, so you paid for yours. And I think that's all the extras that have been paid for. I haven't seen any of Mariano's bills. They don't come to me, so I don't know who he.
Well, he sent them to the individuals and so, in other words, then, except for Jim. The cement and the labor would be owed to Mariano.
Correct. Correct. Right?
I believe so. One thing I
Because-
think about is, did we pay for the outwalks on the other side of the road? Did the city pay for those? I don't remember. You know, we put the,
I don't
and
know.
I remember there was a thing that he didn't charge for them, but I don't remember, but I think the city paid for those little 4x7.
Oh, like on that street though, everything had to be moved up or down or up. I mean,
It all got moved down. What happened?
or down, whatever. It had to get tore out.
Right.
So it had to be redone.
It got moved down to redo it, but you know, the city,
look at that.
because they
Yeah.
did the project, the homeowners owe for it because we had to remove it to drop the grade. I don't know. It's something to think about.
We raised the grade. We
Well,
raised the grade.
How'd you get all their bills?
what we did is we raised it on Sherman about 7 inches.
Yep.
And about 0 inches on Howe, 'cause remember we thought we'd take.
No, you gained about 4.
No.
Did your vehicle drag anymore?
When we lowered the driveway, I
Yeah.
lowered my garage floor entrance and everything, that's all lowered. We lowered the sidewalk in our driveway. The curb that you guys just filled in, that's not much higher than it was before. Cause we thought we'd end up filling in 8 feet, you know, kind of taking some of that out of there. We didn't.
Yeah, we lowered the sidewalk.
We lowered the sidewalk because I ended up with 2 steps instead of 1.
Yeah,
We only. have
That's why the apron, the apron went down. Even in my daughter's driveway.
But
Cause
the
the sidewalks went down.
the sidewalk
The
went
sidewalks
down.
went down, which lowers the apron, yes.
With lower
But
the,
the curb out in front isn't much lower at all. We raised the one on Sherman to help that water flow,
And then the
and then we.
walkway
lowered
to
it.
the street though had to be replaced too.
What's that?
The walkway to the street had to be replaced too.
Correct.
Yeah.
What I was asking is that, did the city pay for the ones on the other side of the street?
And I guess that right now it's
one,
In front of Potter's and Pat's, all those, there's 4 of them on the other side of the street. When we.
oh, you mean the walkway?
The walkways.
Oh, I believe because we had one, we had to replace it. And Matt Kump did that work, right?
Yeah, I don't remember if the city paid for them.
I don't know.
know.
I believe, we put them back because they were there. You can't take and put a new sidewalk in and not go down to the, from the sidewalk to the curb. Leave it empty if it was there, right? Can't
Residents
take it out and not
would not
replace
see
it.
him.
But all these ones on this side, we took them out
Residents
and then we replaced
unless
them and
he's
actually added
pushing the
steps and
city to
stuff
check
to
that
them.
Concrete.
We took them out. So shouldn't we replace those? I didn't get one because we didn't want one there, but because we had a big enough driveway, you know.
So the city paid for all the concrete. So why is Mariano billing them for concrete unless?
Well, that's what I asked because
Unless he's gonna,
this bill is,
unless he's gonna.
How did
pay
you
the-
get their bill?
back.
this bill is a year old or 8-10 months old.
Yeah,
There's no date on any of it.
We just got those, I don't know, a month ago, did Kristen Tires got hers?
I don't know what,
7.
when she got it.
with $200 in concrete, 150,000 in concrete.
Because the city paid for all the cement.
The city paid for all the cement, yes.
But did the property owners get billed back?
Yeah.
So no, that one they did not. You paid yours, you
I
measured.
measured mine and paid mine because there was a blow up at a meeting that you were the one who paid for the cement, so I measured mine and I paid for it. And what I paid is actually less than what he tried to build because they just guesstimated it, you know?
So 2 houses down from you, the rental, they got cement step and around the house. Their cement was paid for by the city?
All the cement was
All the
paid
cement
for.
was paid for by the city.
Yeah, but not on private property.
Every Yonko bill that came, the city paid for.
Yeah.
So then they would have to be.
But we were supposed to bill them people.
I billed them for the sidewalk. I did not bill them for steps or for walkouts.
We asked who would determine how much to bill them because there was no breakdown in the billing. And people said I wasn't qualified to bill them because I would have measured them and gave us a concrete bill, but
But there you have that bill now from the guy that poured it. Can't you bill him that?
you could, but it's not correct for material anyway. Oh,
Well, I'm just-
just saying, Robert, because if they threw $1,000 number at the concrete of mine, it was like $697 or whatever it was, based on the per yard price by what was there. And I actually even rounded up to make sure it was covered.
How about the removal
Removal City did.
of your private driveway?
Yeah, Robert Anderson did.
Well, then what'd I pay for my cement for? Well, we shouldn't be removing, wow. I mean, you asked to have a new walk around your house. But then the city, we remove it and we put it back for free?
I don't know if they asked for that piece of sidewalk. It was put back. I don't know the answer to that. They're not billed for it in this bill, just so you know. They're billed for the outwalk and the step, but not the other piece of concrete.
How much money we talking about
$3,000.
altogether?
3,000, 35,
Well, and
42,
and the
4,300.
Concrete's already paid for.
No, I mean,
Okay, so what's labor?
From the homeowners to the city.
400, 1,900,
Well, mine's paid or anybody.
23,
Just a cement.
2,800
Just
in
cement.
labor.
Pardon?
2,300 in labor.
Here. Oh, you were right. You said $3,000.
So in labor, there's 5.
Or the total bill?
Well, I did the total bill, but do we want concrete or do we want labor?
Well, the residents wouldn't be paying him for concrete unless he's gonna turn around and write the check to the city, because the city already paid for the concrete. So if that's the case, we need to bill the residents for that concrete then.
Yes,
For
that's
those-
right.
These stairs and
The
these,
city needs the
Yeah.
bill for
that's,
that.
that's what I'm saying,
Cross
yes.
the concrete off that bill and just pay him labor.
Well, the
The
residents,
pay him.
yeah, we wouldn't pay
Yeah,
them.
they pay him.
Yes,
And what did you get for a total dollar amount?
For which part?
labor's
The whole thing?
The whole
Right?
thing? Or just the labor?
Or cement?
I was just talking about what money is owed to the city.
Well, if it's concrete, that's
Take our job
2,
off because we paid for our concrete.
360. 1860. 1960, 2,000 in concrete.
Altogether it's $5,000 labor and concrete roughly.
Yep, because then it would be, there's 3,000, 3,500, 4,200 total, 4,300.
I would just say we need to bill the people for the cement as a city, and Mariano needs to collect his labor from the individuals on his own, right?
Yeah,
And the concrete would be what
Yeah,
didn't need to be replaced,
right. It'd be just.
you know, because like the steps had to go down.
It would
had
be
to
the elective. concrete.
redone.
Yeah. Because to me, I call it the Communic House, the narrow one by the alley. We had to take out his step in the front door to replace the sidewalk. Well, you would have had to put that back.
Yeah.
Because in reality, that's not even his step. That step is on the sidewalk. You know, you had to put it back to original
Right.
form
Yeah,
at the city's cost, right?
yeah, I would buy that, yeah.
The only thing that's really extra in the project was my driveway and my patio. That was extra concrete and extra labor.
You already paid for that.
Right, correct. I'm just saying, that really, the rest of it's kind of in the scope of the work because we lowered it, necessitating the new steps and stuff like that.
I thought there was a walk all the way around the house or something.
No, there's a little piece on the front, like a 3 foot by 10 foot piece, but that's not even in that bill, I don't believe.
So really and truly, the way, if I understand this right, then all of this then is in the scope of the project, and we shouldn't be billing any more to any more citizens. Because the only extra concrete was really yours.
My driveway and my patio.
But
And everybody paid.
the house two from you down to the south. That cement around the house going to the south sure is not the city's responsibility.
No, it's not, but I don't know that they asked for it. I don't know.
They elected to take it out and have it done.
I don't know.
They even went so far to have it, want to know if we could take the railing off the steps.
Well, see, that's what we don't know. So there'd be an exception then. That person should be billed
Yeah.
for that amount of concrete,
And then Barb,
whatever that is. What do you guess? That's $500, $3,000, I don't.
from her sidewalk, hers kind of went like this and flared, I believe. And, you know, to come up to her existing steps, that was filled in. Well, to me, from there to there should be the property owners. expense, right?
Did it go from the sidewalk to her steps? Cause there was
Yeah.
some, yeah, we tore that out for a water line years ago. The sidewalk, do you remember that? We tore it up and they had.
That was the front door.
Was that front door? Oh, her
That-
side door?
That's to the north.
She paid on the south side. She had a mason come in and put the sidewalk from her thing to our sidewalk. But the out ramp,
Yep,
the little 5-6 footer, that was in this.
there
project.
was not one there, but she wanted one.
Correct, that little guy.
Yep.
But the big one, she had, maybe company came in and did the big one from the sidewalk to her.
Oh, yeah, that was there before we started, right? Yeah. But on the sidewalk to the east, she wanted these flares, I believe, to match up to her existing cement steps. Well, this is private property. You know,
Yeah, that's an elected piece there.
Well, here's the rub. I don't know if we
you
can
want to see
actually,
them numbers?
I don't really get them. I honestly don't get them. But unless we know. Like from measurements, have somebody actually measure them. And bill that way, you just can't come up with a number and just go, hey. The city would be happy if we get $250 and I'd be happy from you if we get 300.
Yeah, when you measure it out, you say it's 1.125 yards at whatever, 136 or whatever we're paying, that's what the concrete cost is. Then your labor, whatever they were charging for, foot or whatever it was. Across the square.
But then if you dug out existing, that's got to be figured in here. If she wanted that one to the south side and there was sod there and dug it out, that's all got to be in the cost,
Right.
right?
The city guy dug all that stuff out though, and we don't know who gave direction or if it was just being done because it's part of the project. You know, Robbie, you took my driveway out at my request. I understand that.
Yep. So.
So it sounds to me like you. Or you, maybe you know every piece of cement and what was private. Somebody needs to go down there and just get measurements, period.
Well, wouldn't you have done that to have a cement price?
Well, I thought he measured everything out and said they were 100% perfect.
Yeah, but
Now,
now,
just eyeball.
100%.
Perfect, I think is what he said.
now we're saying though that maybe. This piece was not included, but that piece was, and there's an awful lot of discussion going on here as to what really should be.
Well, then you'd have to put that bid as R&R, remove and replace. For its labor costs, right? Because it just shows labor.
Okay, but we don't care. All we want to get is cost of
The
cement,
cement.
period. I could care less what the R&R is.
That's his deal.
The city
The labor is.
should just be to make the city whole, should get paid for the cement on the private, the elective private cement.
Cause the other rub is that the people that had work done don't have a contract for any of the additional work, you know what I mean? They don't have a contract with Mario. The city did a project. And they asked for things, but they don't have a contract.
It's the same thing would happen when you do a street or whatever, and I want my driveway paved. You know, they just come in and do it, you know, you pay it privately, if you have a contract or not.
So in other words, you asked somebody to put your driveway in for you. But now since you don't have a contract, you have no intent to pay the
No,
labor?
I'm paying my bill. I already paid my concrete.
Yeah.
Like I said, we just got the bills a few weeks or a month ago.
But I mean, you just said that if
I-
you don't have a contract, you don't.
I wouldn't have to, that's correct.
Wow.
But that's not who I am, Robert, so.
I don't have a contract to haul 8 loads a day to Waterloo, but I get paid for every load.
Yeah.
I don't have a contract.
Well, there is, you know,
It's
That's
different.
different.
Contract law is a weird deal. You have to have a contract for everything you do, and you have to have the proper type font, or it's not even a legal contract. So on your disclaimer, your lien law portion, if it's not in 10-point bold, it's not even a legal contract. If you have the wrong contract, doesn't allow change orders, the change orders aren't legal. And someone who knows contracting can have you do $100,000 in change orders and never pay you because your contract didn't allow for them.
So in other words, the rental property that wanted their steps, he went ahead to do it because there wasn't a change order.
Correct. He should have got a change order from the city for the scope of work.
No, not on private property,
Well, from them, he should have got a contract with them to do the
Yeah.
work. Yes.
but it was fine to do that work at the time you were doing it. But now it seems like people want to avoid paying the bill. It's like, wow.
Well, I mean.
I don't know if they're avoiding. I think they just,
Anybody's been billed.
Well, they, you just got them, you know, like I say, this was issued on 7/23. It went to all these people. Well, supposedly it went to these people.
But that's between,
Yeah, that's between them, but he said he hasn't received any payment.
so
I know that. Well, I get in the middle. I don't
I
know.
understand, but
Well, but the bills are wrong anyways, because he shouldn't be billing them for concrete anyways.
Yeah, but I don't
Right?
think he didn't know that at that time.
So how many,
And and this
I
is,
think he's very well aware that we paid for all the concrete. We've made that a point that the city pays for the concrete.
and they,
The whole
he
not
charges,
on private.
Every bill from Yonko came to the city, and I think everybody's, that's been said in multiple meetings, how many Yonko bills and all that the city's paid for all the concrete.
when even all that private concrete probably amounts to like 2 yards, couple, $300. Then the labor,
Well,
okay, so really then what it amounts to is that if he collects, then he owes some money to the city for cement, not the property owner.
Yeah, the property owners, if they're gonna pay for cement, should pay the city directly for cement.
I should just tell him to collect for his labor only,
Correct.
But he's already sent the bill.
but reissue it. Void it up and say, hey, after the city meeting, that the city has paid for the cement already, city should be billing the individual. I just get my labor, right?
In my opinion, personally, I would think it'd be a lot cleaner, just let him fight it out, collect, and what we'll bill
But
him.
we've already paid for the cement.
Correct.
Yeah, and we'll bill him. One bill.
Well, we just
Not
never really
five.
figured out what needed to be replaced and not. Like Kristen's steps had to be removed. Cause the sidewalk got moved.
Yeah. And she asked for.
And she had it on like,
Bigger one.
had it on just
Yeah.
3 feet. Which he has no problem with, but if the steps had to go, I mean,
Yeah,
That-
you
but
should go
then-
measure, you should go measure. We should go.
cause the
measure.
labor shouldn't even be on that then.
Correct. Other than the portion she asked for, like if she said, hey, make it 5, make it 8, she would
She
offer.
didn't even ask for it.
Oh, I thought she asked them to
No.
make it wider. They just made it wider.
No,
So,
she was
Yeah.
okay with it. I mean, because they wouldn't, they'd just put the steps in, would put the concrete in later anyway, or had him.
Here's where good scopes of work and good contracts really come in, because it covers everything. And
Anyway, it just, I mean, we can sit here all night. What are we gonna do about it?
so then go back to the measuring of the elective personal concrete. Figure out what that is, and that number should be billed to Mariano then. Then we're whole.
Cause we already paid for.
we already paid for cement. So you bill him for the elective concrete.
he gets paid for his bills,
And then he.
And we're good to go.
It's his problem to collect.
We shouldn't
It's his
even be-
problem to Fight it out,
dealing with his bills, really, but
because
They
we're,
shouldn't have been billed some of it.
we're
a lot
not,
of it.
we're no longer the billing entity here.
No,
He is.
no.
So let's just send one bill to him
I agree.
and he can pay us.
I agree.
But it's up to him to collect the labor.
It's up to him to collect anything else he
Yep.
wants to collect.
Yep.
Yep, we have nothing else to do. All we want is our cement money.
Yep.
But is he collecting labor on the elective piece of the concrete or stuff that had to be replaced? Because we lowered, and I'm not talking about mine, I'm talking about others. We lowered the sidewalk, so Kristen's step had to come out, had to be put back.
We're out of it.
I'm just saying, that's probably part of her step is part of the city project. Because her step got removed because of lowering the sidewalk, so her step is labor and materials is part of the city project.
Mhm.
Did
Shouldn't
she
have
get
to
sent the
take it
bill
out.
from Mariano?
She did.
Yeah.
And and Frank, the rental property down there, they had to have another step put in there, or had a step before because theirs got lowered.
Mhm.
Now, the one piece extra there, that's an elective piece beside the porch, but I don't think it's on the bill. I don't know.
So how much concrete is $150?
1
Yard.
yard was like 132, 136 during this.
Yard 1.1 yards. Probably.
Right now I buy you 1 yard.
It would.
Is there 1 yard of elective concrete down there?
There's probably,
No idea what a concrete is, how much it, how big a yard.
there's probably 2 yards of elective concrete.
So,
I gotta turn this.
he's collecting in that. That's my point. He's collecting our concrete right
That
there.
we've already paid for.
Yeah.
And then he should have to pay the city back. That's why I paid the city for my concrete, because it was easier. You've already paid for the concrete. I paid the city back, Robert paid the city back, you know.
Yep.
But like their step, the only elective piece is if they went from, say that they wanted that extra one on Barb's bed. That's an elective piece. If the rental property had a piece by the court, that's elective.
Their steps are included in the.
The steps in the outwalk should, because they were removed because the sidewalk.
them and the-
necessitated.
Rental property are in disarray.
I get that,
They were junk.
you know,
Well, that's
Judge
true.
shouldn't even pass that.
right, but even like the one we covered up, he was mad because he used those junk steps. you
But he
know.
was fine with it.
Yeah, he's fine now, but he was upset, you know.
Well,
He was upset about the trees too. So you know
So
what?
do we-
It's a better looking street now than you ever had in the last 50 years.
so then for the concrete here, then, is that what you want to bill? Or do you think yet that there's a problem with the concrete number in each one of these bills? 150, well, yours is on.
That's what we're gonna bill him for.
Well,
There's 300.
technically, the city probably owes the labor for the steps, not the residents. Okay? The elective pieces, that extra piece in front of the porch, the extra pieces out there, the labor for my driveway and patio, that's what's owed in labor. But where Kristen Step had to replace because of the sidewalk project, that's the city's cost. They've already paid
She
for
shouldn't have to pay
concrete.
for that.
And if they owe extra, then they owe Mario the extra labor for that. Or he's already been paid the labor because he kind of billed for all the project. It's not really broke down into all the pieces. And I said that a long time ago, we didn't really have a really good accounting for all the stuff.
Mhm. Well, we have two choices. Or three choices. We either go down there and measure and come to a consensus of what actually is owed the city for concrete. Or we use these numbers and bill Mariano these numbers for the concrete, or we forget it. And that's really our three choices, you know.
But you know, in Kristen's, is he billing like 500 for the concrete there? I don't know if that's an actual number. Like you say, you need to measure and say, okay, it should really be like 203 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because really, we're overbilling him based on a guesstimate.
Yeah.
What did you just say about Kristen's concrete?
I'm just saying, if it's 500, I don't know what it is. What's
For cement or labor or all?
cement?
Cement is $150.
Okay,
So that's 1 yard.
1 yard in there. And I don't know if there's 1 yard or if there's 3/4 yard. I don't know.
Well, it could have been a yard and a half too.
Could have been.
Yeah, we don't know. So maybe we have to do what
So,
Tom said is
You
go
were saying
measure
that
it.
the numbers are high. Well, that there, to me, that number there is.
Well, I
pretty
mean, he's
fair.
not really saying they're high, but they're.
I'm not looking at them.
Viable, you know.
He threw out a number, not looking at it. He just threw out a number. It's an arbitrary number.
Just trying to,
It's just
for argument's sake.
justifiable. And if we bill somebody, we gotta have, if we're gonna build even Mariano, we gotta have a measurement and says, okay, this is what the city paid toward that.
Use mine as an example. If my concrete was $1,000 there or whatever it was,
Yeah.
and I paid the city $697 or $790.
$879 for 7
I paid $879. Now, do we bill him 1,000 when it was $879? But it's already been paid for, so you don't bill him. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're off a little bit.
Yeah, and if, that's what I'm saying, we either measure and send him a bill for the actual.
But do you
or-
have rerod in there?
I imagine, Robert. When they charge materials and labor, they charge by the square foot normally. Includes everything.
I mean, so we can either,
That's how we do it.
yeah, it's either we measure the concrete and just get paid for the cement, we don't care about anything else. And, or we use these numbers here, like you say, knowing they may not be right, we may be overcharging. But if that's the case, it's his responsibility to get back to us and say that, or we forget it.
What does yours figure out per square foot?
I don't know. I have to figure it out quickly. I don't know.
Because
I measured the yards up. I rounded up a half yard even though I know my step was full, you know, they filled sand, I just rounded up so I wouldn't be short. And,
I mean, you got your patio, your driveway. And that for $1,000, to me, that's, I think I paid 900 some odd dollars over here for.
He's not contesting that.
I'm not contesting.
That is.
I measured it, I paid what the contract.
That's not
Yeah,
the
but we
problem.
were saying 869 or whatever.
He paid $879 for 7 yards. That's what it measured out to be when he measured it.
That's.
At the
what
cost of-
Is here, is that Mariano says it's 1,000. Okay,
But he just paid for the cement, but he didn't pay for rerod,
correct.
right?
But the city only pays for the cement,
I know it, but
period.
Mariano's bill doesn't say concrete and rerod, it just says concrete.
So,
I don't
didn't
know.
the city pay for all the rebar? I mean, the thing is, we didn't account for this the way we should have, because then you'd be able to charge for it accordingly. Is he gonna pay $1,000 to the city for the cement and rebar and chairs and all that?
so in other words, he would only have to pay back the city 869 or whatever that figure was then, right?
Well, then the rebar would have got, the city wouldn't have got the rebar back. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's no real good accounting for any.
And when there's no way we're going to do that. You can talk about that all night. We can't account for all that. All we can account for is what we can measure, prove,
Right.
send a bill for,
Mhm.
period. You know, or forget it.
So you're talking Barb's and my daughters and the rental for measuring. Yours was already, that's
Done and done.
That's,
Yeah.
and it's whatever the elective was. If it was.
Like say Kristen's was just the.
Necessitated to be done because of the project. I don't think they owe for materials or labor, but if it's an extra piece they ask for, they owe for material and labor on that.
Right.
But so Kristen's being replaced because of the project. She shouldn't have to pay for that.
Exactly.
Correct.
Correct.
Frank's for the.
And she had a sidewalk and she had a step and she had an apron. They're all replaced.
And then Frank's rental had the steps that had to be replaced because of the project.
No, they were in disarray.
They were junk.
They're junk.
I mean, they were like
Elected
this.
piece.
I mean, they weren't legal for rental.
So
He
that's
want them replaced. That's the problem.
Well,
I'm just trying to figure out, were they there? They were removed and they were replaced for the project, yes or no? There was an extra step added because the grade was changed. That one they should have to pay for, correct? One they pay for, one they don't. And then there was a wraparound somewhere on Frank's rental that needs to be
That
replaced.
wraps around to the south. It goes south along the house and wrapped around the corner, I believe, just a little bit. But again, in that, you gotta remember there was removal. And I don't say that. Yeah, I know that. So
Okay.
how do you handle that?
The city's already
Well-
paid for, I mean, when we had our city guy doing removal, the city's already paid for the removal.
yeah,
I mean, I
And-
know
and
you
the city-
removed a bunch of
The
it.
city was doing.
I removed all of it.
Money.
I removed your driveway, I removed them, I removed all of the cement that was there. I just transferred it to the city tractor to lift up over into
Yeah.
the truck to make it simpler and quicker.
so you got this bill. You
Yeah.
got this bill,
Yes,
$2,500.
yes.
And so. You're the one who asked Mariano to do the work.
That's correct.
So you're,
I owe him for labor on the driveway and patio. That's
and
correct.
but I mean, that doesn't involve us as a council.
Correct.
That's direct between you and Mariano. That whatever issue there happens to be there, whatever. I'm just trying to understand. All we have to do is bill Mariano for a few yards, a couple yards, whatever, concrete, and we're whole with him.
Mhm.
If he charges this out,
If he collects it.
if he collects it.
It doesn't make any difference to the city if he collects it or not.
That's his
But it's
problem.
already paid for by the city, right? It's paid for at this
Yes.
point.
That's correct.
But he owes us.
And that's why he owes us that.
Yeah.
If I go to town and buy a tire, and it doesn't make any difference where that tire goes, I still owe for that tire. You know, it's still, I owe for that tire. That's exactly what he did there. He used the city to get the concrete's paid for, but he's charging these people for the concrete. So he owes for the concrete.
Yeah, if he's not gonna charge them for concrete, he doesn't have to pay the city, but if he's charging them for
Yeah,
concrete.
he needs
to pay.
he needs to reissue these. And maybe rewrite his bill for the labor, remove and replace rebar, concrete for $1,000, and it includes it all.
Then the individual citizens need to pay us. the
That's right.
concrete.
Yep,
See, what I'm saying is be a lot cleaner. Just let him fight it out. We'll send him one bill.
Yeah.
Why do we as a city want to piss off our citizens?
Well, yeah, we shouldn't be involved in his billing
Right,
besides collecting concrete.
that's right. We shouldn't be involved in that.
Yep.
Let him worry about that.
yeah,
Send him a bill for that, whatever little bit it is. It doesn't amount to anything. It's $2,000 or whatever you said it was, you know? So,
I'll second what Tom said.
doesn't that make sense?
Yes, it does.
You know? It's just the cleanest
have-
way to do it now. Maybe it wasn't in the beginning, but now it is. And all of these other discussions about everything else don't make any difference to the city. The city only can collect for the concrete, which is a measurement that, you know, you do it or whatever. I mean, I can't do it.
I can do it. I'm pretty skilled. I'm a professional estimator.
I mean, you know, you should.
That's what I teach. Did you know? I teach estimating. Did you know that?
I did not.
Well, let's move on for that and talk about the snowplow, so Sarah can.
Yeah, let's get the
forward.
snowplow.
I have assignments due at 10 o'clock that I have to go turn in.
there's only $1,500 worth of cement here.
That's my point. We spent an hour on it.
Yeah, so
And it's not even our
Yeah.
problem. It's his bill.
You go measure-
Not our problem.
I don't know
you go
why we
measure
have
and
them.
You send Mariano the bill for the cement from the measurement.
yeah,
Or you just throw it away.
That's right.
Forget about it.
Because the biggest chunk is paid for. I
Yeah.
paid for the
Yeah.
biggest chunk, the $800 or whatever it was.
Well, yeah, when you take that away. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, what about that snowplow?
anybody want to make a motion then to throw the cement away?
Just ignore it.
Just ignore it.
I'll make that motion happily.
Good, somebody second it.
I gotta abstain.
Sarah, that's up to you then.
Sarah, it's up to you.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I have to
Motion
abstain because it's.
Yeah.
Which it kind of
All right,
sucks
does it
because
carry?
Jim paid his bill,
So
so.
we
you know,
take it
whatever.
across off all cement and he bills for labor and he's done.
It's his problem.
It's his problem.
Yeah.
That's his problem.
What do you wanna know about the truck?
Yep, motion to fix the plow truck, whatever it takes.
We need it. Boom.
Down.
Made the motion?
Yes.
Someone second?
I'll second it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We need it.
Opposed?
It's maintenance anyway. I don't even think we had to talk about
Right,
it.
no, it ain't a big deal. Well, hopefully it won't be,
Want
but
us to know in case it's a lot.
Is it going to be fixed?
some guy Mankato.
How's the box, Robert? I know you guys rebuilt all that. That's all whole because you talked about maybe getting a different box. You
Oh,
fixed
that
the
box will last the city of Good Thunder for 10 years.
I mean, she's generally pretty
The
decent.
undercarriage,
I gotta bring up about the waterway down at the park. We had the engineer out and he looked it over too, and he says about putting the waterway in there instead of tile all the way through. But going new tile across both roads on the north side and the south side.
So he's just talking about a ditch, a wet
Yep.
ditch.
a wetland.
They'll slope it out so it's walkable and everything between the playground equipment and the woods, all the way down.
That's 2 feet deep and 8 feet wide or whatever. So
It'll be probably wider than that.
There's
Yeah.
only one area right by the playground equipment. It's low on the north end. It's up right there.
kind of by a trash can
And then
there.
it goes down.
But it's
So there's
doable,
only
and
one area that's really gotta have the most dirt dug out.
then we'll waste the dirt down there.
Is that the
Either
best way to do it then is a groundswell versus a.
whether it's right around there, or we'll take it over the other side of the playground or the tennis courts. That's a slew area in there, whatever, we'll get, everything should fit down there.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Lose it over there.
Yeah, waste.
Great, yeah,
Use it all.
yeah, we won't be hauling it out down to the lagoon or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
And
And,
Domra said he knows, is it worth it for what? Maybe 3 times a year, maybe in a wet year, 6 times a year? This year, did it do it once? Can't remember. I think it did.
It boiled over once, but I,
Hey, whatever, anyway, that's what the plan is, so
4 hours worth of.
And,
or whatever it was.
it'll be had Boning come over and look, he's around anyway, and it'll be between around, he said 6 at the top for making the waterway. And then going across the roads, he said probably 4 to 5. But he said that's probably high too.
So you're talking 10 grand versus 30 or 40 grand.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Pipe was gonna be expensive, the digging was,
And you run into no problem with somebody saying, you tiled more water to me.
no, yeah,
I
it
mean,
just,
it's
so,
all still running above the ground, you know, I guess that's a good.
and he
idea.
can get the waterway in for sure, and he thinks he can get the pipes in too.
do we ever do anything with that one tile? It's out of the ground, the driveway, the co-op property there, because people climb in there and throw crap in there. We
Well,
talked about that. And he's,
I didn't have,
I'm just asking.
right in that,
We're trying to see if we could lower that. It would probably at most be a foot of fill over it.
yeah.
The way it is right now to get in there, to go under the tile or under the street,
Yeah.
because it's gonna get awful shallow in the street. Unless you build the street up somewhat.
So I mean, but
Speaking of, they're gonna dig that all out here soon, cause I got an approval on it. The co-
Are they gonna haul that to there? Yeah,
I
they
got-
can't get anyone to take it, so.
Oh, really?
that's the pile that's laying there, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
The
okay.
pile's already there.
Oh, yeah,
Yep,
that's
yep.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all dug up. That one's been sitting for 2
Yeah.
years. They couldn't get a
Yeah.
application because everyone heard.
There wasn't enough land
So we want to go with that?
That makes sense. It's gonna be a third of what Baron a tile would be.
And then we'll need tile and stuff. And he said he goes down to Fairmont with a trailer all the time, and he'll have them bill everything we need to us, so we don't pay taxes.
Right. So it's just like us
And
getting,
he'll haul it back. Cause it's 20-foot lengths, you know, or for
we got some of
other ones, and it probably only, we got 4 down there yet, so that's enough for one road. So we'll have 3, 4 links yet, something like that. And then maybe
I'm sure.
whatever you want to call some riprap, maybe, see how it all looks at.
So is it okay that that's what, only $5,000? That's a pretty low. We shouldn't even have.
We don't have to go out to bids, and actually it used to be 25 grand and now it's closer to 125 grand.
125.
Yeah, so now we don't even have to put that out.
We even have to get another quote.
Not really, no. It's very,
Best-
you
best
listen to the
practice would be
lawyer.
get another quote.
best practice.
Best
would-
practice would be to get another quote. You guys.
I
can
understand.
decide on that, so.
But we just as soon have Boning do it.
So is that gonna be, is that just gonna be just layered and sod then for mowing, or are you gonna rip, yeah, so you're not gonna rip wrap that?
No, that'll be grass.
Okay, yeah,
Grass
We're
walk.
going to,
yeah, so you'll have a dip that you.
it's done early, and we'll throw grass seed in it no matter when it is.
Right.
You know, and hopefully it comes up a little bit yet this year, but otherwise it'll come up next spring.
Yeah.
And they don't really get in there beating
You know-
the heck out of it. Well, we can pretty much fence it off or well, we don't have kids down there anymore.
We talked about it 4 years ago, it was gonna cost us 30 grand.
We don't have the school coming down there
How it's,
with
it's a
100 kids every day,
project to move a little dirt.
Probably be best thing to hydro seed it though.
Yeah,
whatever. But I mean, that's
Yeah.
now,
unless they wanna put the fabric down with the mesh in case they get some water in it, you know?
Hydro seed is very expensive right now.
Yep.
Very expensive.
So somebody want to make a
3
motion to
times.
that effect then?
I'll make a motion that we do that project as described, Boning being the contractor.
Someone second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed, motion carried. Anything else under unfinished business? If not, somebody make a motion.
I don't want this to turn into a long, big fight, and I know it's probably going to, but here we go. There was a bill submitted for flowers for Main Street. The check is in there to be signed.
Okay.
Ever reimbursement to Paulette. We don't ever reimburse her for flowers. We bought her a gift card. This is for the 4 new planters that are on Main Street that were not approved by the city. We need to set up a policy, a procedure, and a beautification committee if we're going to continue to move forward with this direction. Per Kennedy's advice. The check in there for Paulette to be reimbursed for flowers is in there.
Kennedy.
You should be reimbursed for it. But
It's just, he's told us before.
we got to get somebody else.
no, I'm not
3 people.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying we can't just decide to go throw in planters, 4 extra planters and $100 of flowers. We have to budget for it. So let's budget next year. We'll have $150 in there for Paula to spend on flowers. Simple.
That's fine, whatever. Yeah,
I'm just saying,
because I don't think you're gonna.
So we called the-
Spend the time she spends on it.
Again about planners.
No, Robert, that's not, but I.
You just said Kennedy said.
I spoke to him about reimbursement for volunteer work, which we were told not to do.
What's
doing it again.
volunteer work about planners? That's material things,
Oh, Robert, never mind,
isn't it?
never mind.
It isn't
Well,
expensive.
I was also gonna bring up, we didn't give him anything last year and this year yet, so. If we give Winters, he does the mowing all the way down the cemeteries, every time he mows his lawn. And she does that, I mean, she's up there every day almost. Pulling weeds, and
I thought I
Planting.
gave her a gift certificate to Thunder.
we didn't do nothing last year.
Yeah, I think with.
I was gonna bring, I forgot to bring it up, or maybe I did, and then we never really followed through with it. So let's say, and it's there again too, instead of the Thunder Bar, should we give them things for the locker? We've never, we always go to the bar and restaurant, but they're in business too,
Right.
and the people live in town, so it isn't like they'd have a problem, going in there and doing some work. So I don't know if you'd wanna, it was $50 at the time, wasn't it?
I think the last.
If you wanted double that, or if you wanted 75 or something, but we should do something, so
I agree.
I'll make that a motion. $100,
Second.
Dick's
All
Locker.
in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carried.
100 each. 100 each. Like for last year and this year. So like.
Yeah.
50 last year, 50.
Be
this year.
50-50, yep, and so it'd be 100 to each one. Dick's Locker.
Anything else then under unfinished business?
No.
I get home.
Anybody have any questions on the blacktopping? It was $53,329.
Thought it was a steal of a deal.
Well, we got a lot of stuff fixed.
And we did more than what that we were gonna do.
Nice to bring.
We might spend another,
They got her done quick and it didn't sit for months. and
It
weeks.
took 6 months to get
we
them.
didn't do
Yeah,
that.
I know. But it was nice that
Next year anyway, so.
down that week and knocked her out and worked late to get her done. And
Well, with that, then somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Go move.
Someone second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks.
Supposed to be 85 and 30 miles